Welcome to the Damaged Goods podcast with makeup artist turned cartoonist turned comedian Jess Robert. Was that my bra?
What was your bra? We're still newlyweds. It's been sexy.
It's just bras hanging everywhere.
It's my life.
An advertising mogul turned rapper turned label owning recording artist Ill Vibe.
I wasn't quite a mogul when I quit that industry.
I know. I felt like it was a strong word. But
I was a middle manager, but I was on my way. I was on a strong course for mogulship.
Would you say it's part of your story?
What was the
advertising?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The advertising background definitely is part of my story.
Yeah. Toot toot. That's my intro.
Yeah,
I toot our horns.
I was gassy back then. That's true.
Thank you for listening, whether you're listening on your podcast app or Spotify or watching the video version on YouTube. Thank you all the same. We appreciate all the watches. If you want to do us a favor, go to Spotify and follow us. Click the follow button, and that would be super helpful. Check us out on socials at Damaged Goods Pod. Myself at 4, the number 4, Jess Robert, and Ill Vibe at Ill Vibe.
When we're really, really famous, and we have like Barack Obama on, like Mark Maron and stuff, we won't have to say these things up the top, but I'm going to add to your general spiel. Mm-hmm. If people want to support us, if you're now coming into season 2 with us and you're like, oh, this is a cool thing that's kind of building, the best thing you can do is go to those places where you listen to us, whether it's YouTube, where you can subscribe to the channel, follow us on the socials, and follow is the correct word for the Spotify platform, subscribe to it. And the cool thing is about all those things is it really just makes it easier for you to check it out when we put out a new episode. And then it does a lot for us in terms of those platforms, Spotify being a good example of kind of messing with you and realizing that there's some support for what you're doing. Yeah, and for example, Damaged Goods has gone from the kind of the bottom, if you type in the word Damaged Goods on Spotify, to like quite a bit up the list because some people have responded. So thank you to the people already listening and following and subscribing, and to the rest. If you're listening now, that would be super helpful. So
big thanks as always to lyricvids.com, the web's #1 lyric video animation company.
Yay.
So the Super Bowl yesterday was Super Bowl Sunday. Do you even know who's playing against who?
Ooh, yes, I do. Only from social media. The Los Angeles Rams played against the what I said on socials was the New English Patriarchs. It's the New England Patriots.
Oh,
ha 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 ha.
Do you know which one won?
Yeah, the Patriots won. Brady is a legendary quarterback, and they won.
So you do know a little bit about it.
Well, Brady's won like 6 quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. That's how much I know about it. And he's won 6 Super Bowls. And people seem excited about that. So we didn't watch it all.
I am not excited about it.
Yep.
No offense to anyone who's down with the footballs, but I am not. I think there's so many things that I would rather do on a Sunday night than watch fucking American football where they
just smash heads against each other.
Yeah, exactly. You read my mind. Celebrity pregnancies. I would rather hear all about celebrity pregnancies than watch football.
On Super Bowl Sunday, did you learn about any celebrity pregnancies?
No, But
you're saying you would.
I'm just saying that if there was a show about that and tells you everyone who's pregnant, and I would rather watch that than.
And does that mean that you're not into celebrity pregnancies?
No, well, it means you wouldn't expect that would be something I'd be into, but I'm just letting people know for the shock value that I would rather watch that than.
A thing I would never normally bring up on our podcast, but just because you mentioned that, is I'm super into Kehlani's pregnancy. Just because she's like my celebrity crush, and she's like hella pregnant. She's like explosively pregnant right now on her socials. So it's funny when you're like
so small. Whenever small people get pregnant, they always look so cute.
Yeah, like I was about to say I don't have a lot of celebrity crushes. I actually think I do. Not like crazy amounts, but I've always got one or two. Like Eva Mendes through my college years now has moved on to Kehlani. Mm-hmm. And to watch that person like blow up and become pregnant, it's sort of a weird experience. It's like, totally. This is like the hottest person on my Instagram about to pop out a baby. And I bet it's way more weird for her and people who know her, but I don't. And so, although I did meet her once, so no big deal.
You got to pick with her.
No big deal. Blurry, out of focus, too dark photo.
That kind of makes it special though. It just looks like you guys are like hanging out and taking selfies, you know?
I might have got her pregnant.
Other things, that I care about more than the Super Bowl. Chris D'Elia's Instagram stories. I would rather just watch them all night on a Sunday night than watch the Super Bowl.
Did you?
I didn't. No, I'm
So
just,
these are things you would do,
these
but
are
you
things I
didn't
would
necessarily do.
I
in
do
place
watch
of
his
the-
stories almost every day. So. Shark Tank, where they update you on where they are now, like those, like they go back to them updates.
Yeah.
I'd rather watch that shit. I would watch like a marathon of that shit.
My favorite is when they update it and they're like, remember these guys? And we were all excited to work with them. Turns out their shit wasn't correct and we decided against it.
They rarely do those, but every so often.
Well, no, they rarely include them in the special. It happens all the time on the show.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Where someone like fudged the numbers on the spreadsheet, and when they do their due diligence, they're like, no, you didn't sell nearly that number of scooters.
Yeah, totally. Do you have anything that you would rather do on a Sunday night?
Make lyric videos for a country singer.
Nice.
That's what I actually did.
That is what you actually did.
I downloaded footage of people holding hands walking through wheat fields and time lapses of sunsets.
Nice.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't mind sports. I often joke like, yay, the sport. Like I don't get heavy into it. But it doesn't do anything for me when compared to what you see like other people really respond to sports. Like I actually see people that like I'm a big fan of, huge comedians, writers, actors freaking out over the Super Bowl. So it's like, I get it. It really means something to some people. And the athletic part, I sort of understand in that it would be really hard to even get to that level and to be to then get 50 of those guys to be the best 50 guys at that level.
Yeah, I get it.
There's a level of like, I said level too many times. There's a certain amount of,
levels.
Yeah, levels. Fuck you to this shit. And I get it. And I'm into it. And if I had friends who were like, come over, I think I would have watched.
Yeah.
But I don't have friends who invite me over. And so I don't get
if
into
I
it.
ever had like these positive experiences with it growing up, it's like, I might even be into it. Like if my parents were super into it and that was like the thing we did together, I get why people like get into it. And I honestly, my little spiel about what I'd rather be doing is like no judgment to people who do want to watch the Super Bowl. I'm just saying that I'd rather, shoot myself in the foot.
Well, for most of my life, it was the most watched event on television. I don't know if it still is, but I don't think it needs our help promoting watching the Super Bowl any further.
And like we're not hurting it.
No, yeah, I know. I think they'll be fine.
Their stocks just drop.
Listen, they survived the Kaepernick situation and they still had black people on stage at the halftime of the Super Bowl.
That's true. Who?
Big Boy from Outkast.
Oh, hilarious.
Here's the thing too. Jay-Z, I was trying not to make this the point of the Super Bowl talk, but it is interesting. Yeah. Jay-Z turned down the opportunity to play the Super Bowl.
He sing about it?
And he raps about it. Yeah. Like, tell them we don't need you. And it's like so great.
Yeah.
That's not what I actually said, but that's the gist of what he said.
He said something like, you need me, I don't need you.
Yeah, exactly. And so I thought, last year when Ludacris signed up to do the Super Bowl, I literally tweeted, Luda's going to get so much heat for this.
Yeah. No.
Crickets. No one cared. It's so weird to me that, like, because I really support the Kaepernick thing. I don't even think it's that extreme. I think it makes sense that a young, proud black man would use his opportunity on TV to... It makes perfect sense that would have happened. I don't even think it's that extreme.
Yeah.
So when they made the big deal and like it's like no team wants him and then things escalated and elevated... It made perfect sense to me when celebrities got on board and don't want to co-sign the NFL. To me, this is not even that extreme.
So what about people who are going to the games? Like if there was like black people going to the games?
A lot of my black friends online, I can't speak for all of them, of course, and I didn't do like any tally, but said like enough NFL for me. I was already on the fence last couple of years. Like billionaire white people and like these like young black men who get like concussions. It's like the whole thing sort of has a weird feel to it. And again, I'm into it. I'm pro sports. These people know what they're getting into, but I understand also the people who already were on the fence about it. And then when the NFL essentially just took the stance it took against Kaepernick, and when Jay-Z, and I'm certain there are other people, but Jay-Z's the one I remember because he made the biggest deal about it on his album, said like, well, I'm not going to fucking go perform at NFL events and I'm not going to partner with the NFL. I was like, oh yeah, well, all rappers will do that. That makes such perfect sense. Kaepernick is probably the most mentioned person in rap music right now in terms of people making like lyrical references to him.
The NFL is just so big and the halftime show is so big.
The paycheck is
almost
huge.
Like saying, Oscars so white. Yeah. It's almost like boycotting the Oscars in the sense of like,
it'd be hard.
You're boycotting this big entertainment thing
that you worked your whole career to get.
Of. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, Luda did not catch any heat. And then this year, Big Boy and Sleepy Brown did I Like the Way You Move. For some reason, I did not watch it, but that happened in the middle of a Maroon 5 set. I don't know why or how that works, but yeah. So that's Super Bowl stuff. Do you want to tell you what I heard about the Super Bowl that I thought was really interesting?
Yeah.
So every year when the Super Bowl comes up, the thing that Twitter gets the most up in arms about is Janet Jackson.
Yes.
Because as we remember several years ago, Janet Jackson caught a lot of flack for the whole nipple expose stunt. Right. That was clearly planned from the jump. They have a whole outfit sewn just to do that.
Yeah.
You know, everybody was on board, from TV producers to Janet to Justin to their management to the record labels. So many people signed off on it. But ultimately, Janet took the flack. Like, she was a slut who just had to pull her tit out on TV.
Right.
Which is sort of why Twitter's so mad about how this went down in history. You know what I mean? Like, and Janet, from what I've been told, I'm not a big enough Janet fan to know, but people seem to think that her career slowed down after that.
Yeah, because it's all people talk about. Whenever someone says Janet Jackson, it's like nipple.
She's not a music legend. She's the unreliable floozy from the NFL. You know what I mean? And as people so eloquently have made the point, Justin's career has flourished on the corporate side. He's like the voice and face of McDonald's and everything in the world. And like,
he's ripped off a thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I don't feel any ways about either. Justin and Janet are two grown adults sitting on $100 million each who joint decided to do it.
Yeah.
So that's my take on that, is that they're, and of course nipples are okay. First of all, if she was lactating and dripping milk, I might have some problems. But despite if it's not that situation, there's no problem. Yeah. So this is the background. What happened at this year's NFL, I can't talk sports. At this year's NFL Super Bowl was Adam Levine performed and took his shirt off. Both nipples out. And he's like, when he's topless, it's like aggressive because he's like thin and you can see his ribs, and he's always like this with his like chest out. Yeah,
I know, he really is.
He's very aggressively topless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, my nipples are touching the microphone right now just to make a point. You know what I mean? And listen, that's the sound of nobody caring.
Yeah.
Nobody over at the CRTV, CTCCTV. These are the people who monitor the television. Is that going to fall or something?
It was just like bouncing against the wall and making noises.
No, good point. Here, I'll move the book. Nobody over at the fucking, whatever, the fucking TV police cared. Yeah. Nobody at the NFL cared. Nobody in newspapers talked about it. And granted, I know why. Those newspapers don't talk about any topless man. This is not new. But it's a great point of like, it's a great moment to be like, what? Hers was clearly a stunt and like an interesting one.
Yeah.
And he's just like being like super sexual on stage. And I wouldn't even say too sexual. Like, I'm okay with his level of sexuality on stage. We should be okay with all of these moderate levels of sexuality on stage.
Especially with entertainers, that's kind of the point.
Totally. Like, is it still 1960 whatever and Elvis is like shaking his pelvis and everyone's upset about it? Like, it's crazy. We just moved from the pelvis to the nipple and none of it makes any fucking sense. Yeah. But I did think it was interesting. My favorite tweet on it was NFL halftime nipple rules feel inconsistent. Just like the most vague, like generic, like statement about it. I thought that was really, really great.
I love that. Yeah.
You know,
amazing.
It's like inconsistent rules about nipples.
Yeah.
Your areolas are worth exactly 1.9 of my areolas, which is takes you over the areola threshold. Yeah. You know what I mean?
The only thing I will say in their defense is that, you know, we're all learning, we're all moving forward. The Janet Jackson thing was a long time ago. That was like 10 years ago, wasn't it?
But that's not that long ago.
I'm just saying that 10 years ago, hashtag free the nipple.
So your argument is that 10 years ago, if Justin's shirt was off, they would have had a thing to say? No, they wouldn't have. And
no, they wouldn't. That's not what I'm arguing at all.
Or are you saying that if Janet's top was ripped off today, no one would have a problem? I think they still would have a problem with it.
Still, you're right. But yeah, that's the better argument. Yeah.
In either case, I think the sexist nipple rules still exist.
Yeah.
You know, they made a Baywatch recently. Rock's nipples were out. I'm certain if any woman's nipples were out, it would have been deemed pornography.
Yeah, they have to change the rating if there's female nipples out, I'm sure.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I know. It's fucked up. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, if you have a movie out and you have male nipples, every guy, it's a beach movie, all the guys are topless.
You can bring your children to it.
Yeah.
But if the women's nipples are out and you bring your children to it, you can go to jail.
Yeah.
That's so funny to me. Like,
you go to jail for bringing your kid to it.
I joke. I just mean that, like, let's say there were too many nipples, so it was deemed somewhat adult.
We're going to need you to leave the theater.
The neighbors, or like, let's say the guy who works at the ticket counter knows who you guys are. He might report you. He's like, he brought him to Baywatch, the topless woman edition.
Yeah.
Like, what? Why would you bring your kids to that?
Baywatch topless woman edition.
But I just mean Baywatch regular topless Dwayne Johnson edition. Yeah. It's like, have fun, guys. Here's a coupon for 2-for-1 popcorn.
Yeah.
And it's like, no problem at all. And I get, listen, we need to change our thinking before every dad should just take their kid to topless movies. That's not what I'm saying. That's not going to do the job for us. Like,
even
immediately.
Magic Mike, even though it has probably has like an R rating or whatever, a PG-13 or a
it must be R or 18A or whatever that is.
Yeah, so even though it does, because we're all conditioned to think that women are sexual and men aren't or whatever, it almost seems silly. Like male strippers just seem silly and fun.
He used to be a stripper and it still feels sort of silly.
Yeah, it just feels like silly, But if it was a girl stripper movie, it would be like, oh, this is like an X-rated movie.
Versus Showgirls when it came out. Granted, again, we're talking 15 years between them. It's not the exact same thing. But let's say Showgirls was remade right now and... I don't know. The name that comes to mind that would be funny, like Camila Cabello stars in it or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just like, people would be like, holy fuck, she's going to do it.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, Magic Mike star, what's his name?
Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum, easily the biggest young male star in the last 5 years. Maybe put two of the other names around him, but he's one of those guys. And it's like, maybe some people in his career were like, holy fuck, what are you doing, Channing? But that's not the take I got.
But he was a stripper, so why would anyone think that?
Because don't remind American audiences you used to be a stripper.
Yeah.
That's low morality. We want to sell you for Marvel movies. Disney's never going to get behind you if you, but they weren't worried about that at all. It just propelled us to start him further. And granted, I think if a woman did it now and it was dope in the way that Magic Mike was dope, I think people wouldn't slut shame her to death. But I also think that's in the last 18 months, that maybe 18 months ago, it would have been different. We're really in that like tipping point where I think people... The nipping point. Jess, stop coming up with puns I can't use for the title of the episode.
You can't say nipping.
Well, let's talk. Do you got Zux's phone number? Because I got a couple of episodes I tried to promote that I'm not allowed to. So
like nipping.
We're gonna try. We have to now.
Yeah. That's Ill Vibe with a mouthful of ice, by the way.
Sorry. Oh, that's so funny. Okay, that's all I have on Super Bowl nipples, but
wow.
Free the nipple. You and I are big advocates of it. It doesn't need to be in the grocery store, but anywhere that male nipples might want to be out, i.e. not at the grocery store, but in the world, I say free the female nipple.
I agree. I'm not wearing a bra right now, and I'm probably pretty nipply.
Semi-free. I like it.
Yeah. And I'm wearing a white top. So if you're listening on Spotify, you may want to check out the video version.
YouTube views really popped on episode 24. We're going to look back in the future and not be able to figure out why.
I'll know why.
That's so funny. Do you want to know some of the other stuff I've been learning about this week?
Yeah.
This is my favorite one. This is exciting AF, and I'm glad we're going to talk about it early in the episode so that all our listeners get it. You ready for this one? This is big, man. Actually, you know what? Wait, before I get into this, can I talk about the weed I'm smoking this evening?
Yeah.
1 second. Let me see if my drug dealer texted back to tell me the name of this first one. Oh, here we go. He did. So I'm smoking something called the King, which is a strain I've never heard of. But the reason I mention that is that I've got 3 separate strains rolled that I'll be smoking throughout the episode. Mm-hmm. I've never done that before, but I don't usually get a big shipment like 20 minutes before the episode. So I'll be smoking the King first, provided by my neighborhood drug dealer.
The King.
Weird strain name. And then I'll be smoking Mango Biche. And from the smell when I rolled it, it was very mango-rific.
It's my rap name.
And then, that's a dope rap name. And then Blue Rhino, which is a combination of Blue Dream and White Rhino, which are 2 of like the more potent stuff I've smoked. And a big order of that just arrived a little bit ago. So I'm going to smoke them one at a time while we talk this evening. And I thought I'd
also turn off the sound on your phone. I can hear
that was on my list of things to do. That's why I grabbed my phone.
Awesome.
Okay, so as I light up, they cured cancer.
What?
Like legit cured cancer.
No.
Like legit
But it's going to be like accessible to everyone because I've heard this before.
Legit cured cancer.
and got rid of the red tape that's blocking people from having access to it?
To be honest, it's funny you asked that question because I did a bunch of research and that's not on the list of things I looked up. So I can't say for sure, but I heard another podcast about it in the past. So I'm aware of this technology and this kind of development from like the last 2 years. But it's the first time it started popping up in the news where companies are making claims. But it ties back to the technology podcast that we listen to so enthusiastically. The king. So Israeli scientists say within 1 year, a cancer cure will be commercially available around the world. Everywhere cures for disease are available for anything.
For any cancer.
For any cancer. Let me explain why. And when I start talking about it, you're going to be like, oh, yes, I've heard about it. Because anyone who pays attention to this stuff has heard about this. It's over the last 2 years, they've been making these scientists have been saying, we cracked it. We know what to do now. So the development of their new cancer-fighting drug relies on specialized DNA protein coding. The treatment is called multi-target toxin. It works very similar to the way an antibiotic works against bacteria. So they basically encode bacteria with the DNA that will fight the cancer.
Right.
And then they inject it in. So I'm fucking vastly oversimplifying.
Yeah.
But then they inject it in, and as the cancer makes it duplicate, it basically hijacks the cancer to be spreading a cure instead of.
Yeah.
And so the beautiful part is that it cures all cancers. It's like so basically listen to this. The process is very complicated and detailed, but would offer a patient a better treatment with less side effects. The Mutato treatment, because it's the multi-target toxin, would not only focus on the original type of cancer in each patient, but also on any mutations that may occur. It promises to eradicate the cancer cells and prohibit them from recurring. Because it's at a DNA level, the actual cells where the cancer was, because cancer essentially is an area where bad cells, bad being this like highlighted red word, because that's a vague word, but
yes,
it kind of encompasses what we need to. Bad cells are duplicating. And so what is one really bad cell becomes a bad part of the body, and that's when it becomes problematic. Yeah. But if you can get down to the cell duplication level and have it curing it and duplicating the cure and inhibiting the cure duplicating on a cellular level, you essentially block that one cell from ever becoming many, many cells and then becoming a problem.
What if it's already a problem?
I don't know. There will certainly be a threshold. Like this article.
Like what if it's like they're terminal or whatever?
Yeah. So if someone's already terminal, there will be a threshold. I don't know if it's the day before he dies or if you have to go, halfway along the spectrum before this cure is going to get you. But let's say you're past that point, essentially, and this is the sad thing I hadn't even thought about. Thank you for bringing up the saddest things I could think about.
Sorry.
Is they cured cancer, but you're just on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, that would suck so bad.
Not would suck. There will be 100 million people that is.
Yeah.
That will be in our lifetime now, not even lifetime, in the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to see a lot of people's moms or dads who it just turns out they just got checked and they've had it for 8 years or whatever. I don't know how long cancer lasts in your body.
The story is fucking
go get checked.
Get checked.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that being the moral of the story, but go get checked, because knowing you have it before this becomes available means that you can keep your eyes and ears open as these new cures become readily available. For example, to like people here in Canada, maybe it already is. I don't know, because thank God none of us are in that situation right now anyways.
Yeah.
But if I was, my first thing would be to be like, well, even if I was an older man, I think I'd be like go get checked, make sure I'm ahead of the curve on this one, because it would be the most depressing thing to be just on the other side for them to be like, damn, if you'd only caught this 1 year ago.
Yeah, totally.
Yikes.
Well, that's great news.
Yeah. So great news. Cancer is motherfucking cured. So, and I'm being all like,
I hope they don't.
It's easy. It's done. Case closed. And I know it's not that. And even they're saying it provides less side effects, better treatment. Nothing says 100%. They're going to realize that there's certain kinds of cancers that are harder than other. I'm sure there's a lot of learning to do.
And in the US, they might like jack the price.
Yes. I can't. There's so many layers when it comes to healthcare. But we spent most of our life, literally as a kid, I remember people talking about like the idea of curing cancer was a thing I understood at like 10 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I remember talking about like curing the common cold or like curing cancer being like a concept I understood. And it's just like, because I knew that scientists were working on these things. And so it is cool over the last couple of years to hear them talking about the DNA encoding theory I think they had, and they were trying it on rats is always like the first step or whatever. And then now that they're making actual, you got a commercial company saying, get ready to buy the product from us. And so, I mean, we still have a little ways to go, but very exciting.
Yeah, wasn't there something that I watched in a documentary about them like inserting like AIDS almost into a little girl or something like that? And it was like kind of like
I think that's this.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was AIDS or whatever, but it was like giving her a disease.
Yeah, no, I think it was I think you're right. I think I called it bacteria, but I think it's a virus. I think they give her a virus and they encode the DNA in the virus.
Because I remember that was a few years ago, and I remember that being a really big deal when it came out, but the doctors were all very skeptical that like there'd be so much red tape and that it would take so long to come out.
They had a long way to go. But 36 months is a long time.
Yeah.
If you could imagine the staggering rates that you're hearing about in some of these podcasts and now in this news study are even close to accurate. If you and I worked at the FDA and someone came in and they're like, we've got this survival rate, you're like, that's impossible. It's like, we can show you.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that red tape that you've never seen anyone cut through goes away because these people have been waiting their entire careers for someone.
Everyone wants to live, whether you're evil or good. You still want to live, right?
And as much as like, man, gatekeepers are dicks, but gatekeepers do want to be the people who find the magic thing.
Yeah, totally.
You know. So if you come in with unspeakable numbers about being able to cure cancer and you can stand behind it, I'm not surprised that they might have opened the fucking red tape doors to companies that can do this. It's exciting, man. I honestly, I'm not scared of public speaking. I'm not scared of natural disasters. Not a thing I think about, or monsters or ghosts. But I lost a friend to cancer. Rest in peace, my kick. One of my favorite humans ever. He was like 30 years old. And so it's like, I'm very aware of, I never lost a friend to a gunshot, thank God. I did spend some time in some bad areas where that could have happened, but it did not happen. I've lost some extended friends that way, like that I've met on tour or whatever. But cancer's real. It's very real to me. It's like I've lost people. My grandfather went that way in terms of old age, and I lost a younger friend to it. And I've known some other people who survived it, but still it being one of the scariest experiences of their life. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I'm ready even for them to start if he says 1 year, I'm ready for the 5-year countdown for this fear to be less of a concern. You know what I mean?
Totally.
When I was young, I was afraid of AIDS. Turns out I didn't need to be. No one gets it unless you're a crazy person. I'm not trying to be mean, but no reasonable person seems to get AIDS randomly. I know people who got other STDs early in their sexual careers.
Yeah.
The idea that you can get AIDS on your first try, I think I would go to argue that there maybe is one person ever that happened to. In any case, this is all not really useful. But the point I'm making is
it's funny that you say that because they showed us a video of exactly that in puberty class. It was this girl who said, the guy said, it was fine and that he's just going to pull out. And so we didn't have to use a condom. And then she got AIDS the first time she had sex. Wow. And they showed us that video. Just like, isn't there more important things you should be showing? You know what I mean? Like, I know STDs are important, but it's just like, that's like, it's so rare that would ever happen. And I remember, I guess AIDS is just the scariest one. So they want to tell you.
I bet nowadays they wouldn't use STDs. AIDS as the example. They would just say STDs.
Yeah.
But when they essentially cured AIDS, I remember thinking, well, I was unlikely to get it, but that's one less horrible thing I need to even have on my list of things I might get.
Yeah.
Cancer was it might have been number one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On the list. For me, sometimes I worry about heart disease as well. This is depressing. We'll move on in a moment. But cancer is the other, is the big one. That's what's like, hey, cure it. I'm about it. One less thing for me to worry about.
Yeah.
We can live our lives and not go out that way.
Speaking of DNA, 33andMe,
23andYou. Yeah.
Yeah.
20, I think it's 23andMe.
You're not sponsored by any of those companies, so I could badmouth them.
We were until right then. Jess lost the sponsorship.
Which I'm about to do. Have you heard about all the bad results from them? Which really sucks because I was really looking forward to doing it, but there was an article about
Are they lying?
Are the people lying about the bad results?
No, I'm saying is 23andMe lying about the results.
Yeah, so there was two twins who took it.
Thought this might be the case,
and they both got different results. And then there was another lady who took the test with all the different companies, and all her results were different. So that means she doesn't really know which one's true, if any of them are true.
Wow.
So, and I'm sure there's going to be more and more stuff like that coming out. So is it based on real science or is it pseudoscience? What is it? I don't understand.
I don't know.
Because you spit into a thing and then
It's genetic markers, and I think it's based on actual science, but based on can be very loose or very tight, and I'm not smart enough to know.
Maybe what they're doing is over exaggerating with the certainty of how they're able to predict it. So it's we can make educated guesses on what you are, but
because if what they said was, look at the genetic markers we found, you've got a 12% chance that you're 12% Irish. That's not really useful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They want to be like, you're 12% Irish.
Yes.
Yeah. Totally.
And then probably the business model caught on. Maybe that's why there's 5 of them, because all it would take is 4 other Harvard grads to be like, you hear about Jimmy? He started a company where he just takes rough estimates and tells people what they fucking are.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, pop, 5 other companies pop up because it's actually really easy to mimic.
Totally. I really wanted to do it and even read the results on the podcast with Dina or something like that.
I'll tell you what you are. You want to know?
What?
25% bitch.
I knew it was going to be bitch.
You're 25% workhorse, though.
Oh, yeah.
You're 25%
funny.
Native Canadian.
Okay.
It's important.
Yeah.
You choose not to have a status card anyways.
Yes. Well, kind of. It's complicated.
It's complicated. And you're 25% my wife. So go make me a sandwich. I'm just fucking joking.
In other science news, actually, this isn't news. This is old news. Whatever happened to the one-way trip to Mars? Do you know anything about that?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. So 5 years ago, or maybe even more than that ago, I remember they were talking about there's going to be this trip to Mars and they were looking for volunteers to start training for it or whatever.
Is this an email from a Prince of Arabia?
No. This is a real thing. As a trip to Mars, and it was a one-way trip, as in there's no arrangement for them to come back. They were just going to start essentially colonizing. So I thought you might know more about it, but since you don't, I looked up a few things. So I think it's a Dutch company called Mars One.
Yep, looking at it right now.
Yeah, so Mars One crews will go to Mars not simply to visit, but to live, explore, and create a second home for humanity. The first men and women who go to Mars are going to be there to stay.
Do you want to go?
No. No. So, but all that aside.
Even in 2032, that's in 12 years from now.
Is that when it says it's leaving?
Yeah, I'm looking 20. So the initial concept was they were going to call us, going to arrive on Mars. It's 2023. They're 9 years behind.
I was about to say, I remember it was supposed to be more sooner than it was.
They're 9 years behind schedule right now. It's going to be 2032.
Yeah. So what I find really interesting about that is to be the type of person to sign up for that. It isn't only you're a great engineer or you're you know what I mean? You're a great fucking botanist or whatever it is that you bring to the table as far as going there. But it's also you have to be really comfortable with your own mind. Do you know what I mean? With yourself and your own mind, because that's all you would have there. Do you know what I mean? And there's the people you're with, but they train them to not even really get too attached to the people they're with and stuff like that. Yep. I know that from that one podcast.
In case they're killed by aliens, I think.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm just making that up.
I was like, really? No. I'm so gullible. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, you just have to be oh, I'm perfectly content with no music. I mean, I'm sure they would have some way of getting music, but no pop culture, no TV, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they get pop culture, but always 18 months after it happened.
Yeah, totally. And
Janet Jackson just got her top ripped off.
Good tech.
Right now he thinks that. He's like, what? It's 2019. You can't be showing nipples.
Yeah. But you know what I mean?
In 5 years from now, he's going to be like, Adam Levine, what a hypocrite.
Yeah. I don't know how that works, but I just feel you'd have to be comfortable in a silent place with just your brain. You know what I mean? And I'm not comfortable with that.
Hey, listen, if dark, HBO style shows have taught me anything, all those people killed somebody, have recently reformed, and so they're kind of repenting, so that's why they're willing to go.
That's not actually true.
No, it's just it's just a character archetype.
Yeah, I feel like anyone who killed someone, they would not let go there.
No. They give them psychological tests.
I think I talked about this last time on the podcast.
Why don't we just bring it up again?
Bring it up again. When Shayla told me that when I was just there was somebody on a show just drinking wine sitting there in the dark, and then I was just who just sits there and doesn't play on their laptop, watch TV, play on their phone or whatever. And she's like, I just sit sometimes. And I'm just that would be the type of person you just send Shayla to Mars, I think, because it's someone who can just sit there and stare and drink their tea or whatever it is. Is the type of person. That's the qualifying factor.
Very few listeners will get this, But Shayla would be a great astronaut.
Yeah, she would be a great astronaut.
Go back and listen to whatever episode our friend Shayla's on, and you'll see.
Yeah.
She would be a great astronaut.
I volunteer Shayla.
Listen, I'll put in some calls. We'll make it happen. I appreciate you had some science news. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So do you want to hear why I'm dressed up so nice today?
I do. I do. You just before the podcast, he said, do you know what day it is? And then he said, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you on the podcast.
We're all dressed up all nice right now. Today is 1 year from when we announced the podcast.
Oh, cool.
So I imagine that means we had recorded our first episode, because I think we didn't announce it public until after we'd recorded our first episode. Mm-hmm. So I imagine that means yesterday or day before was the anniversary of when we recorded our first episode. Today's the day of when we announced the podcast. And February 13th, 9 days from today, and probably around when this episode will air, maybe shortly before or after, will be the day the first episode aired. And you can, it's, even if you look at like on Spotify, you see the dates next to each of them. And the first one, episode 1 with Notion, was February 13th. So we're having our damniversary.
I like it.
It's weird, but so yeah, we've been doing this for a whole year. And I know we just celebrated the end of season 1 and the start of season 2. So I think over time, this day will mean less, and I will just start counting the seasons. But when I saw that it was the beginning of the podcast down to almost the day today, I thought that was really exciting. Been doing this for a whole year.
I know, it's super exciting.
Who was your favorite guest in the last year?
Let's look at the pictures here.
Yeah, that's a good point. We've got all for listeners who don't know, every episode we take they're like, I hate calling them Polaroids because it's like I got to give 2 cents to the company Polaroid every time I say that. But they're like Polaroid pictures, and they feature each of the people we've had in on the podcast. Who's your favorite, Jess?
I really liked the one we did with Ian. He's a comedian friend who we brought in. That was the one we talked about the panty incinerators and the kissing lessons and different stuff. That was a pretty funny
with Dick's
one.
Podcast. My favorite is probably Mike Carosa.
Yeah.
Comedian Mike Carosa.
Oh, comedians.
Yeah. And I just remember when he was talking about he would be like the character from like Suits and stuff, and we were like riffing about who he would be on all these TV shows if we was casting them. And that's why I love having comedians on, is we didn't even plan to get riffy with him. We just got Ken Riffy Jr. all natural.
Yeah.
Au natural.
It's good.
So that's it, man. 1 year of podcasting. I've really been motivated for the last couple of days. Season 1 and even as we launch season 2, where we are right now, it's really about like establishing this as a thing that people know we're going to be here. We've started being a week further out in advance so we can have one ready to drop tomorrow while we kind of mix and prep this one to drop on the following week. And it just feels like it's getting more and more professional. And so people should be excited. Anyone who's listening still to this point to the episode, the guests we have coming up this next month, the kind of prep we're putting into each episode, and the way that we even like brought more lights into the studio, trying to just like really nail like the execution on the episode. I don't know, man. It's gonna be a good season. I'm really excited. So that's it. February 13th, 1 year damniversary. Hey, give me one of these. Give me a little cheers.
Cheers.
A year of podcasting together.
Cheers to everyone out there.
We gave up 30% of our home for this podcast studio, and I'm glad that here we are a year later doing it and having more fun and being better at it than ever.
I'm excited. I feel good about this next season. I think it's going to be awesome.
We've been watching this show on Netflix. We just started. It's brand new. It's called Russian Doll. And it stars, do you know her name?
Neon, what's her name? I don't.
Russian Doll, Netflix. So it's this brand new show on Netflix. It stars Natasha Lyonne. You may recognize from, I believe she was the American Pie girl, and then later she went on to be in Orange is the New Black, and now this is kind of her big new show. Really, really dope, dark, and awesome. Produced by Amy Poehler, who we also love. What's cool about it, there's a little spoiler here, but you're going to find it out pretty fast in the episode.
Yeah,
and then you find it out a trillion times
more. If you watch the trailer, you would also find it out, so I think it's okay.
It's in what I think is like a developing genre. I call it the Groundhog Day genre.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's other ways to describe it. Repeating day syndrome type movies and shows.
Yeah.
But I think really calling it anything but a Groundhog Day premise is really insulting to the Groundhog Day, because
I agree.
They totally, even though the movie at the time was like a B+ movie.
Do you think there's one before Groundhog Day? Do you think there's like a black and white
Like how like Alexander Graham Bell didn't actually invent the phone, but
Yeah.
he's just like the gangster
There's
who.
probably some like black and white like movie
Listen.
about like.
I said we've been doing prep work. We have not been doing that level of prep work to know what movie before Groundhog Day did the repeating day premise. But that's the one, right? That's the one that all of us as children, it like captured our imagination.
Yeah.
The fact that some horrible thing could happen to you that would reset you back to, and you just be stuck on this loop. And I remember thinking as a young man, like young boy, fucking, by the time I was a man, I think I'd gotten over this, but, like, I hope nothing happens to me to get me stuck on a loop. like that would be a thing.
Yeah.
And thank God it hasn't happened yet. Although sometimes these rap shows feel like a loop. And this show has me suddenly like remembering the thing all over again, because that's, without even giving more than that away, that's the thing that happens in the show, is that a character gets stuck on a loop.
Do you remember that horror movie we watched? That was that. It was really disturbing.
Is it the Happy Death Day one?
No. So there is the Happy Death Day, which is funny that it's a birthday, which also
Yeah.
this one that we're watching now is a birthday. No, it was the one that it had like the two moons in the sky. Do you remember that was kind of like the hint or whatever that it was going to start happening, and everybody was in different levels of loops. So this one guy was in like a 0.5 second loop. So it was just like, like over and over again. You don't remember this?
No.
And it was like really disturbing because he was like stuck in like this, like only like half a second of a loop.
I do remember. He would run across the room.
And then he would explode for some reason.
Yes. I don't
But then
remember what
other
that
people
was.
would be stuck in different loops and they always die at the end of it or something like
the
that.
idea of being stuck in a really short, everyone was in different length of loops. And depending on the length of your loop, the more crazy you are.
Yeah.
Because if you die every 10 seconds, that would obviously make you fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Versus if you die every 10 days, they just go sit down on the bench and then they die and
Yeah.
then they start over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so scary.
Yeah.
Edge of Tomorrow, the movie with 100 renames, was also in that genre.
That was
Also known
Live, Die,
as-
Repeat.
Live, Die, Repeat. It also had other names,
Yeah,
but
there was
those are
the
the
third name. There was three names.
Those were the ones that made it into Wikipedia.
Yeah.
They're called, okay, so I just Googled it, and they're called time loop movies.
Yeah.
But fuck you, Wikipedia. You have massively appropriated Groundhog Day. Although, wait a minute, give me a second here. I'm going to look at the earliest movie. So Groundhog Day came out in 1993. In 1990, the movie called 12:01 p.m. came out. Adaptation of a short story. Oh, there's no plot stuff on this one. It just says with adaptation of a short story. So 1990, a movie called 12:01 p.m.
Yeah, I had a feeling they were.
In 1947,
Yeah.
a woman shoots her husband on New Year's Eve, 1946, and wishes she could relive the year all over again. Will she make the same choice a second time? So she only loops one
Yeah, that's
time.
almost not quite the same thing.
But so that happened only in 1947. They were just teasing the idea. In 1947, people weren't ready for the idea that they're stuck in a time loop of the same day forever. Like our grandparents would have committed suicide if they had seen that movie. Like you've seen like movies based in like the 40s and 50s. People were not ready for that level of
people were like
darkness.
vomiting during The
exploding.
Exorcist
Oh, no.
and whatever.
That movie with that guy dying every 10 seconds, if you showed that to my nanny, rest in peace, Bernice Sheehan, she would not have been able to handle the darkness.
What did you say?
Rest in peace, Bernice Sheehan.
What is that? Oh, Bernice Sheehan.
That's her fucking
I thought it
name.
was like you were saying like a Jewish thing, like Bernice Sheehan.
That's her motherfucking name.
It was like
That was her nanny fucking name, okay?
I thought it was like a weird like a Carpe Diem
Rest
thing.
in peace, Bernice Sheehan. You're crazy. Oh, in 1933, so this is even before 1947. So these people are like log cabins. They ride horses to work.
I mean,
Priests matter.
I think there was cars in 33, no?
I don't know.
I think there was.
Google it on your side.
Was there? Okay, you keep going.
After marrying for wait. After marrying for love, tobacconist Joe is hit by a car and wakes up 20 years in the past. He decides to relive his life and marry a wealthy woman instead of his true love. What a weird movie.
That's hilarious.
It's basically like the movie written by like a divorcee.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have married that bitch. Should have married a rich one.
No, but I bet you there's a lesson in the end that like she's a bitch and then he should have went back to his simple life.
You're right. 1933 in particular.
Yeah, there's so many movies like that where it's like he wants to live like the good life, but then he realizes
Here
the
it
good
is.
life isn't what he thought it would be.
I think I found it. I found the first time someone gets stuck on a loop forever. You ready for it?
Uh-huh.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Japanese, Yurusei Yatsuratu, Beautiful Dreamer. Careful, Illy. You almost were doing bad accents. I didn't, but I was right there.
It's okay. You weren't there. It was okay.
I know, but I felt myself going in that
You
direction.
got a little bit into like the groove.
Yeah, you can't say Yatsura without getting a little Japanese, though. Let's try saying Yatsura.
Yatsura.
Oh, so you did it. You did it really well.
Yatsura.
Yatsura.
I'll just say it like a belly.
The students of Tomobiki High School.
Hey, easy.
One word. Relive the day before the school festival over and over again. It is eventually revealed that the students are actually in a dream, but they get stuck in a
And what
loop.
year was this one?
1984.
Yeah.
So that would have been the first example of time loops. In 1987, Mirror for a Hero, Soviet film, two heroes circle multiple times to 49, adapting to, so it's a kind of a post-war PTSD take on it. And then eventually Groundhog Day goes, listen, I see your dark fucking mid-level Japanese and Russian movies. We're going to take it home with Bill Murray. Legend forever. So, did you obsess about that when you were a kid? Was that a thing that you thought about after watching Groundhog Day?
Like
getting
what
stuck
I would do
like
if I-
getting stuck in a loop and like just like lying in bed at night and like pondering the idea of like,
No, I don't think that was one of the things that I got obsessed with.
what would you do? So let's say right now the episode ends, and what we normally do is we make sure everything's saved on the camera and the hard drive. We put the laptop away. We either congratulate each other or we say, I don't know, might not have been that great, and we high five either way, and then we go watch a show. But then you better go tomorrow, and it's the end of the episode again.
So let me answer your question with a question.
Yeah.
If I told you, so if we woke up or whatever, and I told you, babe, this is the 30th time I'm doing this,
Oh, amazing question.
would you believe me? Would if I was trying to explain to you, babe, I keep living the same day over and over again. This is like, this is time 33. Would you need to help me figure out what this is before tomorrow, or it's just going to happen over again? I'm going to have to explain this to you again. Do you know how many times I've explained this to you? You never believe me. Please just believe me this one time.
Let's play it out. So that's what you just said to me?
Yeah.
I would say, babe, so first of all, I'm very science-minded.
Yes.
So
You say that every time. Yeah.
I can't just immediately take for granted that that's true. Mm-hmm. It's obviously far more likely that that's not true. Mm-hmm. But let's take for granted for a second that there's a possibility that that's true. Mm-hmm. I could be a massive ally to you, whether it's now or on the next one or one of these other ones in the future. But together we need to work together to create a piece of evidence that will push it over the line for me to take it seriously enough to start working with you on it. So right now we should start work. I don't mean on the podcast, by the way. I mean, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Workshopping like a way to create some piece of evidence that suggests you've lived this 100 times. So for example, maybe you could have me do something a couple times to get a sense of what happens next.
Or I could tell you what's going to happen in the news, whatever, all these things.
To do something to figure out what happens next, because I don't believe in psychics. I don't. So if you weren't claiming to be psychic and you're saying I'm stuck on a loop, watch, I can prove it to you in the following ways.
Okay, so now new scenario, wake up next day. Okay, babe, I've been stuck on this loop. This is time 34 now.
Yes.
Last time I went through this loop, you told me to create evidence to prove to you that, this is time like 36 or 37. That's
It took a couple times to get it right.
Yeah, to prove to you that this is happening, please come outside with me for just 1 second. You have to come outside with me.
That much? No problem. I'm with you.
And then so we go outside and I say, red Camaro. Red Camaro goes by.
Wow.
I don't know why I picked Camaro.
Smart. By the way, pause.
Yeah.
Smart to go outside and look for cars, because that's a thing that you could predict that I wouldn't expect.
The time would go the same every
Very
time.
smart. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I say, okay, before we go outside, before we push open the door, it's going to be red Camaro, 2 Navy cars. I don't know the brand, Navy car, Navy
gay
car.
Asian couple walking 2 Chihuahuas.
Yeah, gay Asian couple walking 2 Chihuahuas.
You can't just call them Gaysians, babe. It's gay Asians.
Asian.
And then a lady is going to take out her garbage, and then the bag breaks and the garbage drops all over the ground.
2 dildos in the bag. Somehow, take one.
She embarrassingly scrambles to pick them up.
Yes.
The gay couple laughs at them.
Yes. Okay.
Laughs at her. Yes. Okay. So go, and then all of this stuff happens one after another.
2 dildos. The gay couple is laughing. Yeah. The Chihuahua poops. The other Chihuahua licks the poop. You also had predicted that. Okay.
Then what do we do?
Well, first of all, as an atheist and somebody who literally at the age of 16 used to go to a website where a billionaire was willing to pay $1 million to anyone who could prove magic was real or psychics or anything was real, and reading the hundreds of case studies where one by one he proved they weren't real. That's how deep my like non-belief goes. I used to research non-belief as like a teenager to prove to myself that of course none of this shit was real. I would, for the first time in my life, I would say, let's go sit down. I really need to process this.
I'd be like, ugh, I've done this so many times.
No.
Have the time.
We do. No, we do. I'd be like, let's go sit down. I need to process this, because my brain would immediately start redrawing. This is important. It would start redrawing the parameters of what I knew to be possible based on this new information. And put ego aside for a second, because I know that some of this will sound self-serving, but I'm a really smart person who can like quickly analyze that situation. And I think I would be like, I need 20 minutes to think through a new universe where it's possible to get stuck on a time loop.
And then what would you do if, as you were saying that, I was like, I need to think through a new universe where it's possible to get stuck on a time loop.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And then I'm like saying it as you're saying it. I'm like, please, can we skip this part?
No, perfect. So then I say this to you. So then I say this to you. Where do we leave off?
Yeah.
Because I could go that with you if you're like,
it's the furthest you ever got.
Yes, because if you said to me, listen, you're right, and you do, and every time you do, but we need to get past that, I'd be like, okay, so then, okay, fine. If I've done this and this is tiring to you, I could immediately catch up to you to that place where it's like, if this is tiring to you, that I could see how you will have been here before. Where do we leave off? I will just assume that previous me was happy with as far as he could get on this thinking that I want to do right now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That like, whatever I'm going to think right now, you must know. Because I did it with you already once before.
Yeah.
So no problem. Where do we leave off?
Yeah.
I think, and that, listen, and this is why I'm the best husband to have if you get stuck in a time loop, because I think you pretty quickly could get me to where do we leave off? And this is what's important. Now we have traction, because if where do we leave off? Every time it'll be a little further. You've got me as an ally to be like, okay, so here's where we left off. We know I die at 11:59, regardless of anything. And so I'd be like, okay, I have questions about that. And then maybe we get even just an inch further. So now we figure out that you die unless you stay awake. You know what I mean? And then it's like, they get a little further. It's like, unless you stay awake. And we tried sleeping somewhere else, and that also didn't work. Or it's like, I think you'd have me it would still be you. You'd be project manager of your loop for sure. But you would have like a pretty skilled intern in me every loop.
Do you know what I think I would do? I don't think I would make you like come around with me figuring it out. I would be like, you stay here, make some calls, do some research. I'm going to go fucking find that doctor that I read about. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, let's try and get more ground covered at once. And because I only have 12 hours to do this.
All you'd have to say to me is this. You in a previous loop thought this was the best plan. And I'd be like, okay, let's do it. Because I believe that if I said that was the best plan, I believe that I wouldn't just say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's us.
Wow.
Groundhog Day, Damaged Goods edition.
That's crazy. I like that.
You like that?
We can't really go much further with it because what is the solution? I mean, who knows?
How do they usually get out of the loop? They fall in love or some dumb shit usually. A little dumb.
They learn a lesson of some sort.
I learned I must donate more of my time.
Yeah.
I learned that my accent changes regions between words.
What if we found out that I had to learn some type of lesson? I'd be like, what's the lesson? I don't know.
We try everything.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's the part I would be less good at.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just
like fantasy land.
I don't put a lot of mind into like that. When I was a little kid, I used to really, I'm talking because like I'm drunk because I am. When I was a little kid, I used to think a lot about like, how do we know that if you don't close your eyes and count back from 100 in just the right way, that you couldn't beam somewhere? And I would just make that up as a random example. And maybe another one would be,
how do we know that?
We don't know. Because has anyone tried?
Yeah.
Closing their eyes, counting back from 100 in just such a way, whatever that means.
Where you go like really fast through a few numbers and then really slow through a few other ones.
And because I think as a young, weird ADD boy, a pre-genius, I like to call it, he would contemplate, well, if no one's ever done that, if no one's ever counted down from 100, but skipped 82, but just 82, and did 81 twice.
Yeah.
No one's ever done, to this day now, in 2019, probably no one's ever done that.
Yeah.
How do we know that there isn't a magic side effect? Like it was a thing that like 10-year-old would be, because this is the weird thing about being 10. I was smart enough to do the math on that like definitely no one's ever done that.
Did you ever do that with sports? Like, did you ever go like, so like you're about to hit the volleyball and if you go
yes
3 times and then you hit it in the right way, it's going to be perfect. And you have like this weird superstition in your mind where if like, oh, if I do this breath thing 3 times, and then you hit it and then it goes. Yeah,
playing basketball. Yeah, no, I was a very superstitious basketball player as a kid.
Yeah.
I would like bounce it in a certain way.
Yeah. I think a lot of people
I would think about certain things and I would be like, I was thinking about the wrong things. I know better than that. I know better than that. I know to think about the other things.
Yeah.
Like so fucking stupid. Yeah. But at the same time, like we just played pool recently and in one game, I almost ran the table. You were like, what the fuck's going on? I was playing at 200 or 300% of the pool player I normally am.
Yeah.
And the very next game, I missed 9 straight shots. And so the psychology of sports and like aiming with balancing and existing as a human being in your mind outside of the game of pool or basketball or whatever else you're playing or golf
is 100% a thing.
It's so weird and is 100% a thing.
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, we don't play a lot of sports these days and I haven't done a lot of jump shots. When I was young, I used to go outside. I knew that pro basketball players shot 1,000 shots a day and I didn't have that kind of focus, but I would shoot 200 shots a day thinking that, well, this is my best shot. I thought I was going to be in the NBA most of my childhood.
No.
Even though I never grew. I'm 5'10". I told people I was 5'10 and a half most of my life. I'm pretty sure the half is a lie. No, actually, I know what it was. One ID said I was by centimeters. I did the math that it was 5'10 and a half, but I think they just accidentally gave me an extra 2 centimeters. That's higher than I normally am.
That's funny.
And so I started telling people, I'm 5'10 and a half. I'm basically 5'11", but it's more like I'm 5'9" and like
I was about to say, I don't even think you'd be 5'10".
No, I on all of my ID, I'm 5'10".
Yeah.
But I think if you measure me, I'm actually a hair below 5'10". I'm like 5'9 and 7/8 or something.
Yeah.
Which is like, so this sounds so stupid, but like I consider myself, I mean, I can't stop saying it, but like relatively smart. And still, I'll say to you this, ready? 2 scenarios. Hi, my name is Anthony. Half Italian, half British. I'm 5'10". That's like an audition, like an intro. Yeah. I'm copying Corey Lee's Instagram. I don't know how auditions go, but that's what she posts. Okay. And then I go, hi, I'm Anthony. I'm 5'9", half Italian, half British. I feel like the first guy, you go, well, that's an average height man.
Yeah.
And then the second guy, you go, do we need any short guys in this movie? You know what I mean? Or it's like, it's just like the threshold where 5'10" is like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Where like if your friend was like, you're like, what's he like? And granted, you don't give a fuck about height. But if she was like, I don't know, he's cute, he's 5'10", you're like, ooh, so he's kind of tall. And you're like, he's cute, he's 5'9". I didn't know you like short guys. And it's a couple centimeters.
I wouldn't say 5'9" is short.
But do you know what I mean? You wouldn't be like, oh, so he's kind of tall.
Yeah.
You would immediately start to be like, oh, shorter than your last boyfriend then. Okay.
If you were an actor, you would definitely be one of those actors where they meet you in real life and then they're like, oh, he's way shorter than I thought. Because you don't look short when you're by yourself in pictures or when you're by yourself in videos.
Oh, Jessica.
But when you're standing next to...
You say that like my life doesn't already feature that conversation on a regular basis. Yeah, no, when I go on tour, I hear quite a bit. You're a little shorter than I thought you were going to be because I'm a big personality. And you see me on camera and there's like a trillion music videos and that sometimes you just behave like someone who's 5'10".
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For some reason, for the longest time, I thought Tom Segura was like a short, chubby guy.
No, I think he's 6 something.
Yeah, he's so tall. When we saw him in person, I was just like, oh my gosh, he's really tall. I always pictured him as like a short, kind of stocky guy, you know? It's weird.
That is weird. How tall are you?
I'm 5'6". Yeah, I'm pretty, I think I'm on the tall side of average for girls because whenever I was in a dance production, they would always either put me on the outside if it was like a diamond, or they would put me in the middle if it was like a triangle or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
because of your nose?
Like leading up to the...
No. I'm just joking.
Leading up to the tallest person. So I know I'm usually the tallest, like in a group of girls, or not usually, but sometimes the tallest in the group of girls.
Yeah, 5'6" is a good height. I remember when I was young, I paid a lot of mind to like how tall a guy should be compared to a girl. Is that a thing that you and your friends ever talked about? Like, do you date guys shorter than you?
Yeah, I've also, we've talked about this before. I've dated lots of guys shorter than me. Height is not a thing for me. It's never been.
Yeah, me neither.
Like if a guy was really, really short, that would be weird. But I've dated guys shorter than me and it's not a problem.
Yeah, I think so too. Like obviously when you're a guy, you date girls who are shorter.
I don't mind feeling like a supermodel.
I went out, I think I always mention this in
I
passing.
have some too, actually.
What, like a drink? Yes, but it will be the last. We're getting down to the bottom of the mix,
Okay,
which is no
just give me
problem
like
for
a
me.
half
But,
drink.
okay, cool. Here, how about I pass you this
Okay, sounds good.
There's the whiskey. There's the mixie. I went on only one date in my whole life with someone taller than me, and I would be open to it. I think I would think it was funny if I fell in love with a girl who was taller than me. I wouldn't think of it as being bad, you know. But I went on a date with a boxer. I met her online. She was a pretty Russian girl. But she was not only significantly taller than me, but significantly broader than me.
Yeah, because she'd be like muscular.
Oh, and she's the kind of like she intermittent fasting, even back then when this was not like a trendy diet, just, you know, boxing shit. And she had this thick Russian accent, which is cute unless she's a foot taller than you and a foot wider than you, because then it just makes it's like auditory proof of that she's
all those things together are tricky for sure.
It was a very pleasant day. It didn't go anywhere, but so that was the one time I ever went out, and I genuinely remember looking up being like, you're really pretty and I bet it would be fun to have sex with you, but just don't think that this is like the distance to surmount to get her to think this like young chubby I was young back then, but like short chubby Italian guy was like,
you're not chubby
compared to her.
Oh yeah,
you're
not like
she had a six pack,
boxer shape.
No, I'll show my belly now. I'm not fat, but back then even I didn't have like a six pack, and she was like ripped to shit, man. She had like GI Joe shoulders.
There's nipples and bellies on this video episode, so check it out.
It's our anniversary, man. We getting sexy. I'm not sure if I said it. I'm smoking the second joint now. This is a mango biche.
Mango biche.
It smells citrusy. It tastes delicious. It was a free sample from the good people at greens.ca. No, did I say tastes?
Yeah, you said
but when I
delicious.
inhale, you still get a taste of it.
Yeah. I guess you get it a little bit in the back of the throat. If you got super famous, more famous than you are now.
Thank you.
Is there anything from your like childhood / like teenhood or whatever that could like come out, like someone be like, oh, I have this dirt on him that would like embarrass you? I don't even necessarily mean like something bad. You know what I mean? Just like anything.
There's lots of like public school, like, you know how NBC used to do the like before they were stars and they would show them like doing like a play. I was so eager to be the center of attention. There's probably dozens of tapes in the world of me doing something that I would be embarrassed about as a like adult artist, just because it's like funny to see me at 7 years old giving my all in this like campy play.
No, you should never be embarrassed.
No, but I'm saying like that's an example of
Wouldn't
something.
it be worse if you were kind of older, like your early rap stuff maybe?
No, there's nothing in, because they're like, for example, you look at my worst video is the Son of a Gun video. It was my first green screen video. I made it in 2010.
I didn't even hate that video.
It's bad. It's poorly made.
It's bad, but it's awesome bad.
It's awesome
It's
bad.
kind of good again.
I probably would share it.
Yeah, it's kind of good again.
So
that's no fair. There has to be something.
No, listen, there's definitely, the thing that would happen with me is if I made it, let's say I made it really famous. I'm talking Drake famous, like where you're like a top 10 artist in the world. You know what I mean? There are people who could talk about me in high school and college as this like so awkward and uncomfortable to be around that it'd be like, oh, that's kind of gross. And like, it's funny to think of him that way. Like if someone came out and talking about Drake as being like, everybody made fun of this guy. Yeah. Every time he talked, it was awkward. He's the most cringe person I ever met. You'd be like, oh man, that's crazy.
I'm sure nobody talks.
No, but I was in my public school, the most beat up person in my school. Yeah. The most.
So was I, but we talk about that all the time.
The teacher, there were teachers I never had a class with who would like bring me into their classrooms to let me know that they would watch for me because they were aware of what was going on. And it was like, I was that kid.
Yeah. Same.
And so, yes, there's definitely people from that era who were, but here's the thing. in that era, they did horrible things. They were the ones who wrote gay slurs on my binder, not me. Yeah. I was just a kid who was kind of feminine I was always very like over the top, and people, and I had a high voice. You hear me now with this, when I get excited. When I was young, I was like, oh my God, guys, oh my God. So I was like, people used to call me all the gay slurs because I had a high voice and I got really excited.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm not embarrassed about that. They are. Yeah. They're the ones with a background.
If that ever came out, they should be ashamed to have that leaked, because
to be honest, and I'm not the person to, this is not my way I want any credit. But if one of these stories came out and you saw the tapes and you heard, but it's like, man, I was an ally before I even knew it, because I was getting, that was the thing that people thought I was when I was young. And this is so true and so funny. Man, this is so funny we're here on this podcast. I have long eyelashes. I'm a grown man. I grew a beard. And my face grew, and they still look long. When I was a little boy with nothing else going on my face, I would look like a little young turtle. This was like my facial hair, fam. They were big and like butterflies on my face.
All little boys have nice lashes.
But I still have long lashes for a guy.
And because you're Italian, they're dark and curly.
And so I looked so, like, not for any reason. I wasn't walking around in like tight clothes, which again, would be totally fine. But I wasn't. But my those big eyelashes and my high voice, and there was something about like my little keenness that like my dad definitely brought it up at least one point, and the bullies certainly brought it up, where they were just like, oh, this little feminine, because back then nobody knew about feminine heterosexual men. There's you're either a real man or you're not a real man, and now there's this new thing. There's gay people. They weren't even ready to talk about trans or any other of the colors of the rainbow, but like just the idea that you were feminine meant that maybe you're going to be gay. And so I caught a lot of that when I was young, when I was in that age group.
Yeah, but like you said, that they should be embarrassed. Not
I'm not embarrassed about that shit.
Mine would be nudes for sure. If I ever got famous, definitely there could be some nudes leaked, but they were when I was very young, so it's kind of the same thing where like whoever leaks them, I don't think there's two people. I know there's two guys
over 18. Yes.
No,
you took under 18 nudes.
Yes.
This just in, Jess Robert did nudes under 18. How old were you?
When I was over 18, I was already like over that.
How old were you?
15, 16.
And how old was he?
Old enough that this will never happen. They will never get leaked. There's two guys. They will never get leaked because these guys would not want it known that they had those pictures. And I'm sure there's some kind of metadata.
Were they professional photographers?
No.
What do you mean, quote, professional?
I sent webcam pictures.
Oh.
Yeah.
Were they musicians?
Yes.
Okay. That's a big industry. I haven't given them away yet.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would be mine, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not worried about that.
It wasn't one of your like sexy photo shoots. I didn't know until later.
No.
You sent nudes to somebody.
Yeah, I sent nudes.
On their request.
Yeah, probably.
They were engaging in sexual.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Otherwise.
Yeah. One of them I had sex with.
And they were over 18.
Yes.
Significantly, or?
Not super significant.
Give us the like age range that they would fall within.
Like one was 21 and one was 22, I think.
Okay, so and you were how old? You were 15?
15 or 16.
Okay, so that's not okay. I'm not endorsing that. But if you're 20 or 21, I sort of think of that as being like they can be caught up in teenage shit still.
Yeah.
Instead of like,
and for anyone listening to this who's like, right now, like, don't worry, I don't feel victimized by it. I'm sure it has some effects on my.
To be honest, you being that age, you were 18 or whatever, dating the 35-year-old person to me was riskier emotionally than. And I might probably got those years wrong.
18 and 32.
18, 32. That's close.
Yeah.
Riskier emotionally for you as a young woman than 16 sending nudes to your 21-year-old boyfriend or like guy you're fucking or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he's over 18. Yes, you're under 18.
Yeah.
But both of you are the same distance from 18 and it sort of feels consensual still.
Yeah.
The 32-year-old, not even getting heavy into it, always felt a little like, no matter how consensual it felt for you, he should have been on another level and was like in a different place intellectually and like what he would have been looking for. Totally. I tend to be on that train. But I get it. And you were also a grown ass woman I just think if you're a grown ass woman and it didn't end too negatively for you, then it's not a hill I need to die on or even climb up on, The
other thing I always think about if I were to ever get famous is the gross guys that I've fucked, like coming out of like the woodworks.
Hilarious.
And I wonder because it depends on what level of famous you are when they come out of the woodworks, would
people believe them? Or would they just be like, oh, there's no way this person's just saying this because she's famous?
You'd have to be at a certain level of fame for people not to believe it, I guess. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking, there's nobody like insanely gross. It's just like guys who I wouldn't brag about fucking might be like, oh yeah, this one time, blah, 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 you know?
But here's the thing. Do you know why you don't have to worry about that?
Why?
Every star ever has that.
Yeah.
And I've never, ever heard it once.
No one cares.
No one cares.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, nobody cares.
Yeah. Let's say even like...
And in 2019, nobody wants to slut shame either, but also no one cares.
Or fat shame or whatever else the thing you might, for some reason, be embarrassed about this person or old shame or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's say you made a really bad decision. You hook up with someone sketchy. So someone who's like on edge of homelessness and like just super sketch. Not to be judgmental, but you know what I mean. I still think if I were to find out that like Ariana Grande, just after college, hooked up with this basically a like sketchy drug dealer, missing teeth, I would be like, that's crazy. And for a minute, I would be like, that's really crazy. Mm-hmm. But then 2 or 3 days later, I would forget I ever learned it. Mm-hmm. It just wouldn't mean anything. I would read that headline. I might even click it to be like, wow, that's hilarious if that happened, because that's a really sketchy dude to hook up with. Yeah. But still, a few days later, it would be gone to me.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Unfortunately, there's no video or photo evidence of these things I'm talking about. As far as I know.
We have to segue for even being in this universe, because we're right next. We're next.
I know what's coming.
Yeah, we're next door neighbors to something that has to be discussed.
Yeah.
And much of this has been overdone by every other platform in the world, so we won't overkill it. But I was reluctant for a while. I didn't watch it. I held off. But this week, while I was working, I took in the R. Kelly documentary kind of in the background, and learned so much about the case that somehow I missed when it really happened. I sound like one of these like celebrities who like feels guilty. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't hear anything. No, but I remember hearing a lot about it, but I don't recall. So for example, let me explain. I'm of the age, I'm 35 now. So when I'm of the age that when like the pee thing, which was the first thing I heard about, because I was too young when he married Aaliyah.
Yeah, the pee thing was a long time ago.
Yeah, when he married Aaliyah, I was quite young.
Yeah,
so I think I knew who Aaliyah was, but I didn't know how old she was. And so I'm sure I heard a rumor of it, but I didn't get it. It wasn't until later I was like, he did what? Mm-hmm. That I started to add it up as like a grown man. Mm-hmm. But the pee thing I remember it happening. And I remember distinctly, like the way I chalked it up in my memory was that someone had told me, keep in mind, this is either pre-internet or early internet where you weren't on it all day. I remember hearing that the real culprits here were I feel bad saying this, the mothers of the girls and the fathers of the girls. Mm. Because they had told R. Kelly they were 18. The parents told him they were 18, had dropped them off, and had essentially signed them up for this.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's not what happened. The parents had no idea they were even with R. Kelly, let alone lying that said they were 18 years old. So it's like I'm not saying that I don't make up that story of what I remember defensively, and I don't think I even defensively created that lie. I think there's something to be said about people heard what they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And then told people what they think they heard they wanted to hear. Even
the not most recent, I guess, but even the more recent one of the sex slave thing. So now that's going about 3 years ago that we found that out.
Yeah, I think it was 2.5, 3 years ago that the big, like, R. Kelly has a sex cult thing came out. Yeah.
I even remember hearing the girls say that, like, nah, it's consensual. And I kind of was just like, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a big R. Kelly fan anyway, so it's not like I, like, bumped his music after that.
But didn't...
I definitely was just like, I'm not going to really pay attention to this issue then, because if the girls are saying it's okay, then what are you going to do?
And that's crazy, because in that time, like this is while we were together.
Yeah.
We talk about the ways in which abuse affects. Now we don't talk about it a lot, but we've talked about how abuse can affect a woman, and we know that her saying that really means nothing as long as she's still living with him.
Yeah.
Every woman would say that.
Yeah.
In the documentary, there's a whole thing, spoiler alert, where one of the girls breaks away and she goes home with her mom.
Yeah.
And you're like borderline tears. You really cry if you're not a sociopath like me. And then it ends. And then in the closing credits, it says, double spoiler alert, skip right now if you don't want to know this. After that whole heartfelt reunion, and she broke out.
The girl went back?
She went back. Now she, since then, broke out another time, and for right now, at least, she's out.
Yeah.
But it's great. In the middle, there's TV cameras. It's the big opportunity.
Not okay.
Think about the support system when you've got like all these professionals being like, you getting out, we all think that's a great idea and it'd be good for this fucking movie. So they've got them like reinforcing what a great idea it is. And she still was like, I might go back, and went back. They were pooping in buckets, fam. They were pooping in buckets and she went back.
Yeah.
They were allowed to leave their rooms. They were starved and they pooped in buckets.
So this is what I think about that. So when
Poop buckets.
There's a lot of people who stay with abusive boyfriends who aren't shit. They're just some, drug addict dude and they somehow get them wrapped around their finger, and psychologically they have them come back all the time.
Yeah.
This is fucking R. Kelly in a mansion.
One of the most influential R&B artists in the history of the world. And when this girl leaves,
after this, so this documentary was fun, probably. You got a little bit of attention. After this documentary, and I know that me saying that they want attention is bad. It's not really what I mean. But I'm saying after this documentary ended, she's back to regular life. Yeah. She doesn't have a mansion to sleep in. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's just back to normal, regular life. And it's like, hey, I mean, he did treat me like shit, but at least
I am one of his top 4 girls.
Yeah,
and we live in a castle.
Good. It made me feel special, even though, he would slap my face sometimes when we had sex or whatever. It's like, it made me feel good. And the control almost makes you feel more wanted. Do you know what I mean? It's like the fact that it's like, oh, I'm his like dirty little secret in the bedroom. Like, I can even kind of put myself there. You know what I mean? Like, like I said, I'm not an R. Kelly fan, never have been. I do not find him sexy. The Crystalia thing about him being like, did you get your shots? Trying to like recruit girls from Africa.
Come back to America.
He's not sexy to me. He's not sexy to me, and I don't get it in that sense. But as far as like being trapped by that thought and like the need for attention, I get that.
So many of the people in the podcast, on the documentary, talk about not just is he a superstar, but in the Black community, he's even like
deitized,
deified or whatever.
Deified,
because he's one of the most influential songwriters, artists of all time. Like, man wrote for Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson. So as a writer, he's the biggest. He doesn't get bigger. As an artist, he's had more billboards than most anybody but like Mariah Carey and like Drake. He's the biggest. You know what I mean? Like, on the production side, he's the biggest.
Couldn't you say that about Harvey Weinstein as well, though?
Yes, but Harvey Weinstein didn't really mean anything to anybody. He's a behind the scenes guy.
Yeah, that's true.
R. Kelly was like you don't want to say the man of the people, because it turns out he was always a shithead, and a lot of people always knew that. But he was like Beatles level big, coming from like a very poor Black neighborhood in Chicago. So for a lot of people, it's like he's the guy. He's the canary in the coal mine. It's like what you don't know is the person you look up to the most in your community is the biggest piece of shit in entertainment history.
And I definitely think it's a thing, and it's funny because it goes back to the Chappelle skit that is being like scrutinized right now, but it's just like totally. It definitely, that's the whole point of that satire, is that he's talking about how Black people want to support their own and don't want to just tear down, like they feel like the Black community is being torn down and these people are being attacked because of racism. And it's just like, no, like there's also a lot of white examples. There's Harvey Weinstein, there's Louis C.K.
There's way more white examples of
there's a lot of white examples. So I think predators. That I totally get that. Like, I do get that sentiment of just like being a little bit defensive about like, oh, don't just try and like pick apart his life just because he's a Black man. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%.
But now that we have all the evidence and all the details, we have to look at it for what it is and be like, oh, that he's not a good one.
We have given him more than the benefit of the doubt. We've given him more than he deserves, really. Especially when this is taken into consideration. Listen to this. It ain't worth this shit for real. Ain't seen my kids in years. Trying to keep me from being an artist. I'm at rock bottom. And this shit has rocked my mind. It's 19 minutes long. Cause the anointing is on you. And that's why these haters is at you. So just keep on doing you, babe. I was told I had to sell my cars. I was told I couldn't get a loan. Said I owed $20 million to the IRS and they was coming to get my home. Robert J and Joanne, my kids. What you hearing out here about that? We don't usually play music on this podcast, but we learned something today that
And you didn't even hit any of the really cringe points. And
I'm going to, don't worry. Yeah. So at the end of this 6-part documentary series, the real gem, because there's nothing funny about this, man.
And we both freaked out when we heard it. We were like, wait, what?
Yeah, it doesn't even need to be said, and I don't even feel guilted into saying it, but I'll say quickly anyways. I can think of nothing more horrific than some rich dude just taking a bunch of impressionable young women and locking them in rooms and fucking with their sense of self. Like, it's the worst.
The worst.
But the funny part of this whole thing, the thing that to me is undeniably funny, was on July 23rd, 2018, when he realized that essentially 100% of the world now knows what he does and who he is and what it's all about, released a 19-minute song called I Admit.
It's called I Admit.
It's called I Admit, where he literally like addresses things, sort of. Yeah.
Give us some of the highlights.
Let me please. And it's going to take me a second to get some of my favorites here. Okay. I admit I'm a freak. Used to go to strip clubs every week. But who they trying to say I am? Okay, where it goes here it is. I admit I fuck with all the ladies. That's both older and younger ladies. But tell me how they call it pedophile because of that. Shit, that's crazy. Man said the word pedophile in a song. He
actually said the word pedophile.
If you have had sex with so many young women that you need to address pedophilia, it's an issue. In the documentary, you find about how Wendy Williams, famous journalist, says, I had a long call with R. Kelly. He told me everything. So in this song, he says, Wendy Williams mad at me. We drank some Hennessy. She said, what about Aaliyah? I said, love. Side note, when I was a kid and when I was a teenager and I found out about the R. Kelly Aaliyah thing.
Have we explained to that?
Yeah, R. Kelly married Aaliyah.
When she was?
15.
Yeah.
I heard her parents signed papers to make sure to say it was okay.
Not true.
Turns out it was a secret wedding. Her parents were not invited. The minute they found out, they had it annulled. The very minute. That's very different than having them sign off on it. So it's funny that like the version I heard was so.
I wonder who started those rumors.
PG-ified. I think it's just like support for R. Kelly taints the story as it gets told. So here we go.
Which is like, oh no, he's fine. He got permission.
She said, what about Aaliyah? I said, love. She said, what about the tape? I said, hush. The P tape.
I said, hush.
Yeah. I said, my lawyer said, don't say nothing. So that's the P thing.
That part is like the cringiest to me because it's just like, it's literally like looking in the face of the problem and almost laughing. Like almost being like, I got away with it. Hush. You know what I mean?
This is the last section that needs to be sung. I bolded it double. I found a double bold button.
Wow.
What's the definition of a cult? What's the definition of a sex slave? Go to the dictionary, look it up. Let me know, I'll be here waiting.
Ew, he's so gross. Like,
yeah, so he put out
basically
a
he's
19-minute song featuring that.
And to be honest, that probably is his actual like defense in court as well.
It's not an actual cult. We are just shy of cult.
Yeah,
fuck off.
It's fetish. It's fetish. It's not cult because that is the defense. I think.
But
where
you
it's
could
just
say
like,
abusive. Like the fetish has gone to like an abusive point.
But unless the girls say that I did not consent to this, which they're not saying.
But then the court doesn't allow.
Well, I guess some of
the
them
court
are.
doesn't allow for Stockholm syndrome. Then. So basically,
but he didn't kidnap them as in like pull them over in the street and drag them into the van.
But in some of their cases, they were underage when he got in.
Yeah.
So I know you're not defending R. Kelly, but
I'm not. Yeah, I'm just.
But let's
I'm just
say
saying
that
what
was
would be his defense.
Let's say that was the defense. Essentially, any sociopathic man needs to do is get a woman in long enough before someone takes him to court to get her Stockholmed up real nice, and then you're straight. Because you can't say shit. It's a fetish. By the time she's Stockholmed out real good, you don't need to worry because now it's a fetish. If anyone asks her before that, where it's like, are the black eyes okay? No, they're not fucking okay. You hear the girls in it say, the first time he hit me, I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
But then later they're like, well, it's R. Kelly and who's to say he's wrong? And I don't really get that, but then I've never been SNS, Stockholm Syndrome. I've never gone there with anybody. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's hard for me to picture how you could get to that place, but I believe it's real. I've seen enough intelligent together human beings talk about like, I don't know, for a little while I was trying to protect him. Trying to protect the man who makes you poop in a bucket. That's really hard for me to picture, but like I don't say that to be jokey. I say that to be like, you put those two things side by side and it's hard to envision yourself getting to that place. One of the people who does like a secret, they model his voice. You can't hear what he really sounds like.
He doesn't sound that goofy.
No, I can't do the like actual muddle thing, so I ended up sounding goofier than I intended. But he said basically that women came by all the time. He'd hook up with artists from the industry. They didn't name any names, but just like people, from parties. It was normal until he sensed weakness. Until he sensed that she had no support system or was not in touch with her family, or if one thing they said is if her family was easily manipulated. And so there's something they didn't really touch on the documentary because I don't think it's helpful to the cause. Yeah. But you've probably got some moms and dads who are like, R. Kelly, do whatever he says. Yeah. It's not very helpful to the storyline of the documentary. Totally. But there's going to be a couple that are like, just not that bright, not that privy to what's going on, and not that really paying attention, going, whatever R says.
He's paying for everything?
Whatever R says, you do it.
Yeah, totally.
If he's flirting with you, okay, don't let it go too far. It's just like, because I'm sure there was some of that too. But the ones in the documentary were all like actively trying to prevent it, and essentially him defiantly finding ways to be like, if I have, one woman said pretty much money could buy anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, totally. Honestly, I can really put myself there. Like, that's why I feel for these girls so much. Cause it's just like, who would be like my favorite fucking artist? I don't know.
What if Jeff Goldblum did it to you?
Jeff Goldblum is so nice. I don't want to put him in that category.
No, what if you met with Jeff Goldblum and then his man, cause what always happened, this is how it happened. Okay. So let's play it out like you meet Jeff Goldblum this way. Let's see how far you would go for you.
Single or?
So you're single.
Okay.
And you've recently just moved to Toronto, very ambitious. And I say that because I think you'll be good at this. Now you're a little wiser to not just taking every opportunity, but I think if you were fresh to Toronto and you're kind of bright-eyed and you're like, I want to be big in this business.
100%.
So
very impressionable.
You move to Toronto, fresh out of makeup school. You go to Comic-Con. Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park is a whole theme that year. Jeff Goldblum makes it in a weird twist of history. And you meet him. And he shakes your hand and he's really charming, but he doesn't go over the line with you. He just is like, hey, it's very nice to meet you. Toronto's full of like cool people like you. And you have like a moment. You felt it. You laughed and you felt it. But he didn't say anything that flirty. It was just like, wow, he really gave me like a moment. And then while you're at the side, his manager comes over and he just says, shoot me a text. I don't know if you would have texted back then, but go with me.
Yeah.
We'll let you know where we're partying later. I don't even have to ask you. I will, but I don't even have to ask you. For sure, you're like, fuck yeah, wherever they're partying, I'm popping by later.
1,000%.
And to say your red flag isn't off, you're not even thinking if there is a red flag. So far, you're good. You get
also, am I of age at this point or no?
Great fucking question. Let's say you're 18, because the second half of the documentary.
Also, we both know the answer. If I'm not of age, I would still do it.
Yeah, but let's say 18 because it'd be less red flags. Yes. And R. Kelly basically learned after the first trial to meet girls at 17 and not do it till they were 18, so that you essentially couldn't say shit to him. You know what I mean? So let's say you're freshly 18. You go to the party. Now he gets more flirty. Now he says, "Oh, you're in makeup? I pretty much have all the contacts that could make like something happen for you. Let's get together sometime." Are you still in?
1,000%. So far, nothing's wrong.
Totally.
Yeah.
But nothing's wrong, but he has revealed himself that he's willing to help your career in a date-like manner. You know what I mean?
Okay, so maybe I mean? Like,
maybe I didn't hit that hard enough.
Pursuing somebody, you would be interested to help their career.
Yeah, but that's not real. If someone's trying to fuck you and help your career at the same time, that's
smart
not real.
me is just like, oh, he would just be wanting to fuck. But also, I'd be down to just fuck too.
Yes, totally. Yes, okay, totally. So how does it get weirder for them? Okay, so let's follow the R. Kelly story now.
Okay.
So you go on a date with him.
Yeah.
He's charming.
Goes great.
You fuck.
Yeah.
He says while you're having sex, call me daddy. But like not
Zaddy?
Call me Zaddy. Let's say that. But not just like when you say my name during sex, but like you have to say it. Call me that. Do you say it? And is there any red flags going? Are you that worried? What are you thinking?
No, I just
first time, like right out the gate, he's like, when we fuck, you call me Zaddy.
Yeah.
I
just feel like this is probably how celebrities fuck. They just like really know what they want.
Totally. Okay. So that's the beginning. Yeah. After you have sex, he says to you, when you call me on the phone, he gives you a little kiss, like one of those like lippy, like R. Kelly kisses, like, like really, but you like it.
Okay.
When you call me on the phone, he winks at you and kisses you and he says, "Call me Zaddy." What do you say?
Sure.
I love it.
So far, you've given me nothing. I think you need to proceed.
No, but here's the thing. I've given you nothing except the first 3 steps of what actually happened in the R. Kelly
100%
scenario.
I'm one of these girls.
Okay, so let's keep moving.
Okay.
Now he brings you around on set. He shows you what it's like to be Jeff Goldblum.
Wow.
So you're hanging out on set. You're meeting other celebrities.
All right.
In R. Kelly's case, he produces 1 or 2 of his biggest songs of his career. Essentially, it's like inches from them. I Believe I Can Fly and the Home Alone remix, 2 of the biggest songs of his career he makes. So Jeff Goldblum essentially makes one of the Jurassic Park movies and one of his other movies like right in your face.
Wow.
Like while you're fucking, while he's around you.
Yeah.
Now Jeff says, listen, the more time we spend together, I really want to be real with you. The way I approach things, and generally celebrities like myself, is, there are other women. Do you keep fucking him, and do you keep moving forward with him?
So I think at this point, this is when I would also be very honest and be like, no problem. I totally get that. And I totally still want to see you as long as you're okay that there's like other guys with me as well.
I don't see. These girls didn't have the gumption to say that. I hate to say that, but that's in the story. They didn't.
We don't know all the details.
True, but I don't believe that's the.
And he might have said it was okay. But
if they did, I believe what R. Kelly in that moment would have said is cool. He's not agreeing to that, but he's hearing you.
Yeah. Okay. So far I'm still on board.
So Jeff Goldblum says cool.
Yeah.
And he kisses you, and you guys have great sex.
Yeah.
Next thing that happens is he starts helping your career. Maybe he gets you a makeup gig on one of the movies. Keep in mind, at this point, this is still your main goal in life.
Jurassic Park?
No, because none of these girls got like that opportunity.
Like Portlandia?
It was on something you liked. Yeah, you're the makeup artist on something he's involved in, and you get your first credit.
Nice.
And again, he's doing he's hosting. Not hosting, but he presented an award at the Oscars.
Netflix deal.
Yeah, you went to the Oscars party. He did that whole like Netflix like voiceover thing.
I would like to take this moment to say I'm so sorry, Jeff Goldblum, that we're doing this.
No, it's okay.
It's just for the sake of the story.
Yeah, you. By the way,
this is not Jeff Goldblum.
He's J. Goldblum.
Yes, he's just Jay Goldblum.
Jay Goldblum. So Jay Goldblum, he gets all these, and he's giving you like huge breaks in your career. Like you're literally like at Oscar parties and talking to people about how, oh yeah, I know I just did makeup on this hit TV show. Wow, that's amazing. I'm gonna get your information. Maybe we'll put like you're now, as far as you're concerned in this moment, you're as high as it goes.
Yeah.
The only thing higher than this is a more working, famous makeup artist. You know what I mean? He says, "Come move into my house." That's how. If we're gonna stay together, that's pretty much how we roll. Is like the women I love live with me. We're a family. Do you move into the house? And he heavily implies that if not, you'll essentially go back to Welland.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That would be the point where I would have to make a serious decision, because I would be like, okay, I know that he's just seeing other girls. So I would essentially be like a sister wife. You know what I mean? Like,
but at this point, the girls didn't know if those other women live there. Maybe they're just women he hooks up with after shows. That's your level of information.
So he's just saying, I'm just like,
he has other women.
Yeah.
And he's asked you to move into his home. They're 2 separate things. You know both of them. They're both true.
okay, so that's just for the sake of the story. Let's just say that I'm like, okay, let's try this out.
But yeah, we're up.
Rent is expensive.
But yes, totally.
I've moved in with broke dudes.
And you've been
less.
spending time with him like crazy.
Yeah.
And whenever you're with him, you're meeting celebrities and doing baller shit. And whenever you're by yourself, to be honest, you're watching your phone to see if R. Kelly's going to call. Because I think that's the reality for a young person.
You're painting such a real picture.
Who has an A-list celebrity boyfriend.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
trust me,
when you're at home, you're essentially going, you're showering, you're buying clothes for the next big party that's going to have another celebrity you love at it.
Yeah, no, I
also, by the way, I'm not even saying this about women. Young me would totally have done this if like, I don't know, let's say Cardi B, because I think Cardi B is pretty fucking hot.
Yeah.
Was like, hey, we fuck after a I could see myself in some of these same situations.
Watching your phone. Yeah,
totally. If my celebrity girlfriend wants to hang out, I better watch my phone.
I think everyone can relate to that to some extent with whoever their favorite celebrity is.
So now you live with J. Goldblum.
Okay.
While you're there, you see other girls. So you don't, at first you don't know if they all live there. But eventually you figure out that they must, because it's a really big house. I'm actually impressed with how big the house was.
Yeah. Makes sense.
It's a really big house. Like there's a jungle pool, a pool with a jungle around it.
Yeah.
Like it's a really big house. So yeah, so you have access to things like the jungle pool. There are parties with unlimited money being spent, like unlimited money. And you and I can't really appreciate, but I think there's a thing that most of us, it's like, there's two groups of people in the world, people who've been privy to unlimited money spending and people who have not.
Yeah.
Because it's, when you see, I've even
for sure.
I've even been close to unlimited money spending, and it's kind of like watching a wonder of the world.
Yeah,
it's like,
for sure me and you have like poor kid syndrome,
Yes.
where it's just like we're really impressed by.
I don't think you're an amazing human instantly. I'm not like easily sold. But
I
yeah,
just mean,
I'm
like,
impressed by the ability to just
we value the freedom and the ability to just have unlimited money.
somebody
you know
who
what I
can
mean?
spend unlimitedly
Yeah.
is a sight to be seen.
I think that might be one of the reasons, just to go off of the path a little bit, why it was so hard for me to leave my last retail job where I worked for a costume store. Is one of the things that I got to do was travel a lot and go to the expos to do kind of like the buying for the store. So that I would get sent, all expenses paid, to different, we went to New Orleans, we went to Montreal, we went to different cities in the States and Canada. It would be unlimited. We would have an unlimited credit card.
Yeah.
And the boss was very into like going out to eat and stuff. So if we were like, oh, we spent $1,000 at this restaurant, he'd be like, oh, good for you. Like, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. So it was like this thing where it's like, it was almost like a daddy thing where it was just like, we got to spend whatever we wanted
to. Bring it back to what we're doing. We know you like it.
Yeah.
You like being
So
able
we've
to
established that I like that.
You like that. And this would be bigger than that. It would be all the time. And it's not your boss's credit card. It's a celebrity's credit card who wants things like unlimited of your favorite drugs at the party, an unlimited of your favorite booze, and unlimited famous DJs DJing in the backyard.
I get to wear whatever I want.
And unlimited paying like the top publicists in the world to bring you to places. And so and one example is one of the girls who is a dancer was invited to be the girl in the like shadow box on his big tour where she was up there the whole show and she was a real feature of the show.
Yeah.
And then he goes up there and does a sex act on her in the shadow box and it's a whole moment. And then she has this like solo dance after and she's like, it was like my time to shine. And they brought the tour across America.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's not like these girls are just hidden in his house forever.
most of them were, but I would give an example. So again, in this example, it's like you're really getting some amazing once in a lifetime experiences. And then you go walk away from it and go get a job like your friend has at the mall.
Yeah.
It's like, that's tough, man. That's a tough thing to ask a young person to do because we're pretty good at adapting. We're pretty good at adapting to pooping in a bucket. I hate to say that as the example because that's the extreme example.
Yeah.
But like, I've known people who've put up with abuse and I thank God I've not known people who made it so far in that they started to like excuse it and defend the abuser.
Yeah.
But who make excuses and like could learn to deal with it. Like I've seen that in its small form so you can see how it could get
Here's where the
ugly. Breaking
breaking point would be for me.
Yeah.
It would be like, so let's say I had to poop in a bucket. Let's go with the extreme example.
Yeah.
What am I getting from that? And it has to be fucking huge for my future, not just huge for the moment.
Yes.
It can't just be like, I get to fuck R. Kelly. It can't be that. It would have to be like,
it's been all fun and games. The reality is the reason why I stopped around there is pretty soon we get to a spot where you would never.
Yeah.
The minute he hits you, I know you. It's not happening.
No.
You might, maybe if it's R. Kelly, you give it like one or two.
if it's during sex, you're maybe like, oh, maybe that was a weird sex thing.
Let's say once or twice he loses his cool and he hits you. I could see you maybe be like, he needs to learn that I won't put up with it. And if he doesn't learn, I'm out.
No, I don't even think.
I'm completely projecting. I'm just saying, if not you, a reasonable person might be like, this person who's worth, and I'm going to tell you in a second what he's worth.
Yeah.
To just give it this, like, maybe it's worth teaching him. I would never put up with that, which is in a way still putting your foot down because it's like, I'm going to tell him, fuck you, that's not happening.
Yeah.
I just won't leave yet.
Yeah.
So I could see a reasonable person
I think that's
going
definitely
there.
the first step for a lot of girls, and then they end up giving in afterwards.
I could see that.
Yeah.
But I know maybe you go there.
Yeah.
Robert or Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
I don't know what other women have let you do. I'm really enjoying this time together, but it's not worth that. And then the next day he's like, I'm so sorry. So I could see you getting past that. And then maybe it doesn't happen for another 8 weeks or 9 weeks. and then he hits you again, but it's not as hard. And you're like, I explained, and you're like, and I can see you making it like this far,
Yeah.
and I know you'd hit your wall pretty soon.
So sorry, just a sidebar here. I watched that show, Pretty Little Liars or whatever on the plane. We had a really long flight where I watched the entire season
Back from Europe,
of Pretty Little Liars, and I really enjoyed it. But Alexander, what's that guy?
I don't know.
In True Blood.
He's a stud,
You know
but I
what
don't
I'm
know.
talking about.
He is the True
He was
Blood
the
guy.
vampire in True Blood, and he's beating Nicole Kidman, and that's essentially what you just described keeps happening. Where she's like, "I will fucking leave you." Like she says it to him right to his face, and he's like, "I'm so sorry." Like you know how I get, and we both get crazy. And it's kind of like gaslighting because he acts like she gets just as crazy as him.
But
he's like, "You know how we fight? We get crazy when we fight." Type thing.
That's pretty good writing because I think that's real.
Yeah, totally. And then so they start going to therapy together, and then she eventually does one session by herself. He's on vacation or whatever, and she goes to one by herself, and her therapist, thank the heavens for her, finally is just like, hey, I think you should keep coming to me by yourself, or whatever. And then it basically is like, how often does he hit you? And like they basically like pull it out of her because she's brainwashed to think, oh, we just have this intense relationship. That's just like what we're like, you know what I mean? So anyways, I could see how people would get trapped into that, to just be like, yeah, I get mad too sometimes, and I yell in his face and I say, you know, he's a loser or whatever it is, and then he hits me and then I hit him back, and it's just like,
and he does only hit me when I'm my meanest.
When I'm
that's
being a
true.
bitch. Yeah.
Yes, you are being your meanest because your fight has elevated to that point. But that doesn't mean that the hitting is excused, and it kind of gets distorted, right?
So wrong. But I'm just trying to say that
course,
I understand how a woman would get into that situation.
I think you're following the line of thinking, not endorsing the line of thinking.
No, of course. Yeah. I just want to make sure that's clear. But it's just that. That's why people are like, oh, why wouldn't you just leave him? It's just like, man, like you're fucking dumb if you think that.
The other thing is,
because it's like, if you can't work through that like level of thinking and be like, oh, this is why it might be hard to leave him, is because of ABC. You know what I mean? Like,
and this is why I mentioned the part where his employee said if you were strong, if you were like a powerful woman, he had an amazing night of sex with you, did coke with you all night and fucked you, and then get you left in the morning, fist pound. But if you're weak, he moves you upstairs. Because he looks for people that he could even get that far with. You know what I mean? And so it's like, yeah, if you have somebody who's really lost where they are and they're only 17 and essentially they've never met anybody of importance in their life, and then somebody that everybody they know that's even kind of important thinks of as a god tells them that I can make you what I am. I think not everybody, but a lot of people put up with a lot of shit.
Sure. And I'm definitely somewhere in the middle, because I think
you
that,
go somewhere.
You know what I would be? I would be one of the girls in that documentary that you watched. I would be
left early.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be one of the ones who got sucked into it for a year or two and then left early, for sure.
Yeah, when you really snapped, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing too. A lot of the time, they said he threatened their family. He would have them sign. This is so interesting.
Oh yeah. If somebody threatened my family, I think that's the end point for me. I'd be fucking done.
Is brought to you by Blue Rhino. This is my favorite of the three, and it's a good thing because I bought 4 ounces of it. It's some of the best sesame weed I've ever smoked in my life. It's really good. So this is amazing. Listen to this. This is how I know that it's really about him finding the kinds of people that you could do this to, because there's no world where me or you would do this. He has them sign some kind of affidavit that says he caught them stealing from him.
Oh no, I missed that part.
And essentially suggested that if they ever like wronged him, he could like use this. But that's not a thing.
Yeah.
You can't just bring it to the police that I had my employee or girlfriend or whatever sign this piece of paper that said she stole from me or tried to blackmail me. Yeah, I think you could get the cops to look into it. But considering he's running a sex cult or whatever you think it is, some unhealthy harem, whatever the girls have like deemed it in their minds at that point, he's in more trouble than you are in that case. So it really says a lot about his ability to get in their minds, because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's essentially a placeholder. It's like this, like, and sometimes he said like, oh, or like one girl had to sign something saying her dad had like tried to bribe him. And it's like,
then he didn't.
You know, your father would just win in court then, right?
He would be like, I didn't sign
Any
that shit.
respectable human would just win that and would win in court against that accusation. And so it's just really interesting that like, it says a lot about his ability to like, literally brainwash human beings. It's really crazy.
Okay.
So I'm glad to hear that you wouldn't get all the way sex culted, babe.
No, I would get halfway sex culted.
No, you'd get out. You get laid some good times. I bet he was good in bed. But he also
I don't know. I bet you
he was unknowingly
somebody that's selfish and egotistical. I bet you is not that good in bed. Actually,
that's actually really true. That's a good point. He also was unknowingly giving out STDs, which is sort of shitty.
Sort of shitty.
I was making a pout face. I was being sort of sarcastic.
Yeah, it's one of the many shitty things. Yes.
What do I have? I've got. We're approaching. I think. I'm having fun. So I have a question. Do you want to go short? And wrap really soon, or do you want to go?
We should
long?
end on depressing R. Kelly. So I think if we've got another thing, we should do one more thing.
Several things. Do you want to go short and end soon, or longer and go for another second?
I'm a little drunk, actually. This is probably the most drunk I've been on the podcast. So I feel like we should end soon, just so I'm not too like.
Okay, I love it. So this is a thing I read, and listen, man, I'm getting old. So when I read stuff like this, I try to make mental note of it. 96-year-old who won the Nobel Prize, like in his old age, did some kind of like interview thing where he told people what he thinks the answer to maintaining your like presence of mind and who you are mentally, which is, sorry, super religious people, but everything, the soul, the heart, the mind, the being, everything you fucking deem that lives in this place. And this motherfucker says, if you want to stay sharp and stay you and stay in your moment and able to process life at the fucking peak potential like you are right now until you're an old man, here's what you do. You need to constantly learn new shit that is unlike previous shit. So for example, our friend Shayla is learning a language. That is such a great example of that because it's not just memorizing new things, because you've memorized things before. So even though if you memorize new things, let's say you're making a 0.1% impact because you've memorized before. So the process is the same. You know the process. The facts are new. And I think when it comes to memorization, the process is like 90% of it. It's the repeating. It's the trying to really fucking memorize it. Do you know what I'm getting at? So when you go to, well, I'm going to learn a new language. Now we're talking about like, instead of about 0.1 points, it's like a 50 points. Because not only are you having to memorize new things, but you're learning new things in new ways with new, it's like 5 dimensions of learning at once instead of just being like, Angola, Indiana. 96,000 people. It's
Totally.
like that is a little bit of learning, but and then if you went from learning a language to learning something physical, it's like, well, that's a very different kind of learning. And so I think the idea is essentially to as you grow old, in particular, I think after a certain age, is really spend a lot of time and energy trying to do that like matrix building of like the kinds of things that you're learning and thinking about.
Totally.
You know?
And this isn't really quite along the same lines because you're talking about going completely different opposite directions. But even the podcast, I feel like, has helped me kind of learn more things that I wouldn't normally research or I wouldn't normally kind of look into, and expanding my intelligence a little bit in that sense. And then today I was actually thinking about Joe Rogan because he had like a long monologue talking to the guy from Twitter. Yeah, I was thinking about Joe Rogan while we were fucking.
Sorry. Monologue on Twitter.
Yeah. Basically I was like, oh, I bet you Joe Rogan is so much smarter from when he first started his podcast.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like he's just constantly researching stuff to talk about them with and just like expanding and listening to them and absorbing that knowledge.
Yeah.
And
so
like
I think a side effect of this thing is that we sort of are forced to being in this pivotal middle ground where you learn a lot of different things. We learn less than Joe Rogan because we don't have scientists on.
Yeah.
But just in the way that like me talking about cancer, it's like a little 10-minute consideration of that and what are the implications and what are the questions you still have. It sort of instantly forces you to consider all these different things.
Yeah.
And then later when we start talking about how scientists process 109 hours of oral sex to develop an AI that sucks dicks, it might force you to present different questions and implications.
I mean, that's more along, you know.
That's really some damaged goods shit.
Yeah. We already know lots about that. But even like my one-way trip to Mars question, I was like, I remember hearing that years ago. And then I'm just like, what's going on with that? So it's like, it's good to like update yourself. But yes, totally. As far as like doing completely different things is super cool as well.
It's just a thing that like nobody thinks about.
Yeah.
Like we bought an exercise bike and I'm going to use it more in the coming future. But it's a very, very common thing to think about, like, I need to watch my body. We're really talking a lot about our diet lately here in the home. But it's in all of that, the thing we spend very little time talking about is that, like, how would you become a smarter, better version of you who fires on all cylinders and makes better decisions faster and solves problems in a clearer way and communicates super clearly and empathizes really effectively and like creates plans around the things you want. Like, I'm sort of freestyling, but these are all the like intellectual valuable skills you can kind of have. And I don't really think about, is there anything I could be doing that would make me better at that stuff? Because the reality is, if I was better at that stuff, I'd probably make more money. This podcast would be better. I'd be funnier. Our marriage would be better.
Yeah.
And yet I've literally never considered it.
Yeah. We do get stuck in, like, even though we're constantly trying to expand, you know what I mean? Like, I'm having trouble with the words. See, I'm getting
You're
too
drunk. It's okay.
Even though we're constantly trying to better ourselves,
Yes.
it's like we're still doing it in a very limited sense of like
Yes.
the stuff that we already know how to do, and how do we do that better? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it's like we're taking the same stuff we already know and just making that grow, which is also good. But
yes.
it's just like, but yeah, you can never really.
In comparison, we're always focusing on improving our like processes, but we're very rarely going, is there some like program we could run once a week that would make us, as a general overall engineer of these things, better at it?
Just as an example, with comedy, it's like I could keep writing comedy, keep writing jokes, keep practicing, but I could also look into activities that would make my memory better so that I could learn my, you know what I mean? Like what activities could I do that would help me to use my brain in a better way, that would unlock some kind of things that would make me
able to remember the speech better, able to remember the timing better,
able to even, like, for example, one thing that comedians do is they'll do their set in front of people, respond to like oh yeah, people laughed really hard at that part. People didn't laugh really hard. And sometimes I can do that. Other times I black out and I don't remember what parts people thought was funny and what I just know that I did it and I kind of got through it, you know what I mean? But it's like there might be something out there that could train myself to better like recognize the crowd and, like, you know what I mean, like interact with people and be like, oh, they found this funny and the laugh was louder at that moment, so I should do more of that thing, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still working on dissecting like people's reaction to the comedy, do you know what I mean? And there's something that I could do that would train me to do that better, you know?
I think what we're talking about is essentially things that will put you in your best state to do all of those things the best possible. I think you might be talking about, you need to just spend a lot of time and be in your best self to get better at that thing. And I think that's true probably as well. What's really interesting about this is I would even go, because I agree with you that finding a thing that would help you have a better memory would help you better with comedy and podcasting and other things. I suppose I'm even going a step further than that. Most people would agree with that pretty much on face value. The thing I'm arguing is a step weirder than that suggestion. It's that if you were to take up yoga for unrelated reasons, it would make your comedy better. In that you're stretching your mind and your knowledge of things in new ways that aren't really connected to comedy, but are connected to the mind that thinks up comedy. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Totally. So let's say
meditation.
And one of the things, and honestly, I think one day I might do this as a YouTube show. I pitched it to you like 2 years ago and I'm still on it. Where like I do all these different things and try them because I think I'll become a better person from even trying them. Where it's like 1 week, you do yoga for a week and then another week, I don't know if it's the next week or not, depends how intense your life is. You try to learn a language and then another week you try to code something, because that's very different and weird. We have to like memorize these combinations of things to try to make something happen. That's so different than doing,
to like cook a gourmet meal.
Cooking something really complicated. That's such a different thing. And then you try to learn to sing like with a singing instructor, like sing something really complicated and like historic, so it's different. Or you know what, here's a good example. Try to sing something in that like Indian style that's very different than Western. Because you'd have to learn all new rules to what you're even trying to do with your voice. And it would push you in so many weird ways. Literally, I think that's the reason why when you meet George Clooney, you're like, he's a better person than me. Because that's what George Clooney's life is like. He goes to all these places and learns all these things. He walks in a room and a billionaire is like, do you want to go hunting with me tomorrow? We're going to go hunt. And it's like, sure, I'm going to go hunt with some billionaires. And then the next day, the number one yogi in the world says, do you want me to teach you my secret? Fuck yes, I do. Yeah. And then he goes to a restaurant and the chef says, come back, let me show you my secret ingredients. George Clooney knows everything. Yeah. It's why those people seem cultured and like, but you can do those things. When you go out to the fucking street lamp where there's the fucking sign up for one free yoga class, you could go and then like, I would know so much more about that spectrum of the world from even having done that. You know what I mean?
We should honestly kind of take that as like a thing that we try to do a little bit more because, for example, our biking and Groundhog, which we
so good,
which we talked about on the last podcast. It was like amazing experience. It was kind of one of those say yes experiences where it was
the trampoline park was like that. For me.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was going to be uncomfortable after because I've heard that it's bad for you. It's like essentially the next day you wake up and it's after like a football tryout. It's like the overused metaphor. Yeah. But I was like, but I know it'll be, and it was so exhilarating.
Yeah.
That it just felt like one of those, like, I know physically.
Riding horses, whatever all these things are. It's like, say yes to all the things that make you uncomfortable and just do the thing, you know?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I talk a lot of talk.
Yeah.
But I can't back it up.
Even,
and
I've talked about this before.
I got the magic stick.
I've talked about this before, but my friend Vivian invited me. She's like, do you want to go to my friend's place? They're like in like this abandoned like variety store. And they're just like, there's just a few of them there. And usually that'd be something, and it was at the end of the night. So usually I'd be like, oh no, I'm good. Like I'm going to head home now. But it's just like, you know what? I'll just go or whatever. And I went and then she left and I stayed there with like the weird people who I had like never met before. And I had like a great night. I've never seen them again. But it was just like one of those things where it was just like, why not go do the thing? And if it sucks, you leave.
100%.
But it might be awesome. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, does that feel like it's along the same lines of what you're saying?
100%.
Yeah.
I'm about it.
I know that's like a less like educational thing.
No, I mean,
like
I just
social,
got to,
like,
I guess
say yes to the social thing, but
my angle was more that I read this thing where he was like, it's all about learning new things and solving new problems and like making your brain think in new ways. And I started extrapolating because these articles never go super deep in terms of like, here's a game plan for everyone. It's like, so I started thinking about, well, that makes sense. That makes sense that if learning a new language almost hurts your brain, it's hard to do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where it's like learning new math almost hurts your brain.
Yeah. And it's like when you're working out, your muscles, they rip first.
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah, and then they heal and then they're stronger. I remember
trying to learn, this is it's so stupid and anybody else not in my lane, it sounds so fucking dumb. But I remember trying to learn the music business and it's fucking complicated. It's like a language when you learn about publishing, synchronization, and also neighboring rights, where it's like, oh, these people take a percentage of every song and it's held for these people under these circumstances. It is so complicated. And there were so many times where I would learn 5 things and I could feel my brain turn off like, that's enough, man. Mm-hmm. I'm getting a little bit lost in all of this new information. And now finally, as an old fucking man, I don't know everything, but I think I've got a semi-complete sketch of the like ecosystem of music and revenue and how it all works. And it literally took me 15 years in the way that learning a language takes time, or learning like how to fucking navigate a boat takes time, or learning how to play guitar. This is another example of a thing that like hurts your brain trying to learn how to do. And like you said, I think it's like tearing muscles in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't do enough of that, TBH. I mostly do the things that I'm good at being smart at. And I think that's what probably a lot of people do, is do the thing that they're good at being smart at instead of like the thing they're not good at being smart at and therefore becoming smarter. Yeah. And that's how you get on Jeopardy. And that's how you have us fucking voting for you in the going into Final Jeopardy and winning massages.
Do the things you're uncomfortable with.
Listen, I love y'all. This is episode 3 of our brand new season.
Yes.
Number 24 overall. lyricviz.com. Shout out Notion, who actually helped us perfect the mix on the audio. He came by this week and just had a look at what we were doing and added and made some suggestions. So I think things sound even nicer and warmer and richer than they did maybe even just one episode ago. So shout out to him. Shout out to Sage on the artwork. We love y'all.
Love you.
Peace.